We good to go?
So it can't be consensus?
Can she handle it?
The beginning part of it.
Can she? Oh,
A quorum is present.
okay. We're going to call the council meeting of June the 10th to order. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
A quorum is present.
Any persons wishing to address City Council on any item on today's agenda except closed session may do so at this time. Oh, and we're pulling the minutes for June the 12th, so we won't be commenting on them. Hearing no public comment, we'll close public comment. Item 1, CSA 1 and H1.
Payment of the bill.
Move allow payment. Second.
Madam City Clerk.
Council members Stevens,
Aye.
Dunlap,
Item 1, CSA 1 and H1.
Dunlap.
Mr. Fisher, you'll have to hold on.
Don't you have to have public comments first?
I did have public comment. Mr. Fisher wasn't here, but I'll let him go right after we do this item.
Okay, I'm going to wait to vote until after public comments.
Well, if you won't vote, the vote will be done. Madam City Clerk?
Roll call.
Call-
Roll.
Call the roll.
Okay, so Councilmember Dunlap.
I'll be waiting until after public comments.
Okay, Councilmember Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Chairman Butts.
Aye. Mr. Fisher, I'm going to let you speak, but sir, could you please come forward more expeditiously?
Well, thank you for
Okay.
allowing me to speak, and I tried to get here as fast as I could. You move rather fast, as you always do. So let me say to you that with regard to this deal on the... Oh, you're about to get me all...
I'm sorry,
messed
Mr.
up here.
Fisher.
That's okay, that's okay. I got it, don't worry
All
about it. With regard to this item 6 and this clean water deal, you know, it's kind of curious to me that, you know, that you would bring this up and adopt a resolution, but some months ago, I brought to you, Paul, and I'm not sure if you were here at the time, when they were doing the Manchester project, that they should use the grates for the sewers, you know, to stop all this pollution going into the ocean and stuff, you know. I got no movement on that at the time, and so it's just a farce to me that you them would be interested in clean water and clean beaches, you know, when you don't even respect the city and some of the small things that you could do with regard to it. So that was one of the items that I wanted to comment on. Some of these other items happen to be, I guess, public hearings, and I will speak to those later. But, you know, you're always pushing things with people, and, you know, we deserve a little time to get down and to speak to the thing. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Madam Clerk, what's the next scheduled matter?
Well, Mayor, we have to go back to the motion unless Dunlap would like to continue to waive her vote.
You can record my vote as a no. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Madam Clerk, what's the next scheduled matter?
Mayor, the next scheduled matter is a public hearing to consider levies for fiscal year 2011 Morningside Park Maintenance Assessment District number 1974-2 and adopt a resolution ordering the levy of assessments for said district.
Continue to July 24th, 2012 at 7 p.m. PH2.
Public hearing to consider levies for fiscal year 2011-2012 in-town maintenance assessment district number 1975-1 and adopt a resolution ordering the levies of assessments for said districts.
Continue to July 24th, 2012 at 7 p.m. PH3.
It's a public hearing to consider levies for fiscal year 2011-2012 street lighting assessment districts number 1980-1 and adopt a resolution ordering the levy of assessments for said districts.
Continue to July 24th, 2012 at 7 p.m. Madam Clerk, what's the next scheduled matter?
It's a public hearing to consider levies for fiscal year 2011-2012 Darby-Dixon Maintenance Assessment District number 1987-1 and adopt a resolution ordering the levy of assessments for said districts.
Has notice of the hearing been given the time, manner, form, and manner as required by law, and do you have the affidavit on file?
Mayor, that item is to be continued.
Any communications received on the matter?
No, Mayor, that item that I just read, PH4, is to be continued.
Oh, it is. PH5 is to be continued?
PH4.
Oh, my bad. Continue July 24th of 2012.
Thank you.
PH5, I should listen to you.
Mayor, the next scheduled matter is a public hearing in accordance with Section 6586.5 of the Government Code of the State of California to consider the financing and refinancing of a certain public improvement constituting the city service center facilities.
Okay, now has notice of the hearing been given time, form, and manner required by law, and do you have the affidavit on file?
Notice has been given, Mayor, and an affidavit is on file.
Any communications been received?
No communications were received.
Is there a staff report on the matter? Ms. Quickie?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight, we're having a public hearing, and this is to consider the financing and refinancing of certain public improvements constituting the city's civic center facilities. On June 1999, the authority had issued 27 million tax-exempt lease revenue bonds, 5.1 million of taxable lease revenue bonds. Under the 1998 bond lease agreement, the city has agreed to make these payments to the authority for use and occupancy of the Inglewood Civic Center. The proceeds from the 1991 CLPs were used to finance the acquisition and construction of public improvements for City Hall, Police Department, and the installation of sprinklers for the and elevators, and modernizing some of the lobby and certain city departments, and replacing floors, ceiling tiles, and replacing existing lighting fixtures. The 1970 bonds, the 1971 bonds, the 1971 B, C, and 75 bonds, and the 1987 obligations were collectively used and executed and delivered for the construction of the capital improvements and the acquisition of these capital assets that have benefited the city, including the employees' buildings, fire stations, city hall buildings, emergency operating centers, communications equipment, garages. The improvements and assets together with the 1991 project are collectively referred to as this project. Due to the prevailing interest rates in the municipal bond market that we're seeing today, the city could benefit from a refinancing of the 1998 bonds that would lower the city's costs of debt. The present value savings are currently estimated to exceed the generally accepted minimum savings threshold of 3%. I believe that numbers that we looked at today were approximately at 4.5% savings. In addition, by including, if we're able to successfully close this transaction and include the August 1, 2012 principal and interest payment on the 2012 lease, the city could avoid having to make these payments to the authority in the current fiscal year, giving the general fund relief. Staff has been advised that the current interest rates the city would receive upfront savings over the next 3 years of up to $3 million. In addition, by extending the 2012 bonds of maturity until August 2042, thereby extending the city's current schedule of lease payments, the city could receive additional new money proceeds that could be used for seismic improvements on the civic center facilities. The resolution that was adopted on April 3rd, 2012 allows for the city to use the refunding savings and the new money proceeds from the 2012 bonds for the purpose of enhancing seismic safety and making other improvements to the Inglewood Civic Center. The City of Inglewood Public Works Department has identified approximately $9.3 million of critically needed improvements to the Civic Center. Other identified Civic Center improvements include the elevator repairs, ADA-compliant restrooms and upgrades, fire and evacuation, safety improvements, and emergency generator repairs. The resolution proposed for adoption authorizes a borrowing not to exceed $35 million. The amount to be refunded is approximately $19,150,000 as provided by the city's financial advisor and the underwriters. At the current interest rates, the proceeds available to be applied to the new money project are expected to be about $10 million. This public hearing is required as part of the legislative requirements. It's been properly noticed, and that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Are there any persons present that wish to address the council on this matter?
My name is Diane Sembrano. You betcha by golly, wow, no kidding. Notice, a copy of the attachments are available in the office of the city clerk, the library, and online, but not in the packet out front. How about that? We don't have all the information to address this. Gosh, is that a surprise? Wow, oh, wow, oh, wow. Same, isn't it? Did everyone hear that? These things go until 2042. 30 years. And it says could, not does. But as normal, we don't have the attention of the council, so I probably could talk to the people back here. But then somebody up here would tell me I couldn't, but the whole time the clock's running anyway.
I'll give you another minute, Mr. Brown. Go ahead.
Wow. I get to address the blank page, or attachments, plural. Isn't that impressive? Okay, so these are the monies from 1970 that we've kept spending, refinancing, and it says could, not does, but could.
Mr. Brown, I'm having a book put out there, and so if you want to come back later.
So I'll have how many seconds to look at it before, once again?
As much time as you need, Mr. Brown.
After the vote, I'm fairly sure. Kind of like that redevelopment event that you had 10 minutes before. You put 150 pages out there. Brown Act doesn't really matter in this city, does it?
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I appreciate it. We'll take a 15-minute recess. So those of you that care to familiarize yourself with the booklet at the time.
May I speak? Oh, you want to recess?
We're going to take a recess so you can look at the booklet that you here.
Mayor, there's more than one document in the binder that she just showed.
Okay, there are multiple documents if anyone else wants to go and take a look. Let's see it. Huh? Said that it wasn't online. I've been informed that the staff report was online. It was available in those other places, and it can't be expected that everyone is going to be able, within 15 minutes, to be able to make themselves educated from the copies that are in the hallway, but we do the best we can. So we'll reopen public comment. Anyone with comment, please come forward.
I'm going to strongly recommend that you postpone this item. My name is still Diane Sembrano. There are well over 129 plus 60 plus 25 plus 5 plus 30 pages in question. And even when you said they were available, one member of the council claimed they did not have a copy and proceeded to take those pages out. So no, I could not even look at that, not even if I was a speed reader. So I'm going to make another suggestion just because I'm like that and I'm having one of those days when people disregard the Brown Act. So I'm going to strongly recommend that everybody write down this phone number. It's 323-974-6515 and contact the district attorney's office. Oh, I most definitely will. I'm sorry, I already closed it, but I can put it back again. That was 323-974-6515. I don't know how it is we as a city sit by and let people do what council members end up in jail for, or at least get, in trouble, violating the Brown Act, and we sit here year after year after year after year. But I guess that's who we are, because we don't want to make the calls, make the copies, or participate. So your taxes will go up, your property values go down. I was looking through my stuff, I found board meeting tapes from the school board way back, tapes, 2002, when I said, this is not a path we should go down. And now we have financial insecurity there too. What does it take for the residents of this community to wake up? I don't know. Maybe when you have to borrow money to pay for your gas, your electricity, and your water. Maybe that's what it will take.
Mr. City Attorney, is there any merit to her questioning of the Brown Act?
Well, under the Brown Act requires that when the majority of the body receives a document, the body is to be made available to the public. If we have made copies available in the clerk's office prior to the meeting, at the public library prior to the meeting, if they are indeed on the website, and if indeed you had taken the recess that you did and provided the documents out front for members of the public to review and then comment upon before we take any action, you have complied with the Brown Act.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Matthews?
Just a point of clarification. Mr. Fields, these documents were online, the audits?
Yes, they were.
Mr.
Gil
Matthews?
Matthew, District 4, Mayor and City Council. Now, the Brown Act requires 72 hours. Is that correct?
Were the materials available 72 hours before the meeting, Mr. Fields?
Yes, they were. They were made available on Thursday of last week.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews, please continue.
If they were available, why nobody knows about it? And everybody doesn't have computers. Anyway, we'll let the DA decide. I have several questions concerning...
They're in the clerk's office, sir. They're always in the clerk's office.
Beg pardon?
They're always in the clerk's office.
72 hours prior to.
Yes, they were.
And they were there.
Madam City Clerk,
Yes, sir, they were there.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. First, I have some questions on the oral report that was given. These bonds, what is the bond rating at this time for Inglewood? Secondly, I'd like a definition of money projects. Is this money is going to be restricted only to certain projects where it cannot be any interagency transfers? That should be included in this and not be used to supplement the budget with amendments. And next, all projects must be approved by this council. That should also, not staff approving what projects. And also, you should list the projects in terms of priority, which is part of the council. But you use general terms. And that's difficult because you're giving staff or directions with a lot of leeway where you're not controlling these funds. Now, you speak in terms of 9 million, and then you have available 35 million. And you've identified 9 million projects. What happens to the other 26 million? Let's do the math. I mean, I just did it briefly, but I mean, these are things that should be in the report. And also, I seriously question about it's available in the clerk's office, if it can be verified, I don't know by whom, other than, you're saying it's there,
Madam
and
City
she's saying
Clerk,
it's
was
there.
the document available?
It was available, sir.
Thank you.
And we have the
Well,
staff
you.
report is clocked in
Thank
when
you,
we
Madam
receive it.
well, I'm not one that likes to get involved in litigation, but I mean, if it comes to that, because this council taking a lot of leeway in what I consider violations, but I would have somebody to address that, somebody that's more
Thank you, Mr. Matthew, your
into
time.
litigation as far as Brown
Thank you,
Act.
thank you, sir.
Leroy Fisher, with regard to this issue, as staff had suggested, we might be able to save $30 or $3 million over these next 30 years or whatever you intend to refinance these city properties. I would like for you to understand what this ground lease, a purchase contract, preliminary official statement matters. As you look at this stuff, I don't understand it, and I don't think half of you do really. But I know that the public out there doesn't understand it. If I were to refinance my home, and that's basically what you're trying to do, refinance properties that we've owned and we've paid for, suggesting that you're going to take this money and retrofit the city hall, for instance, or repair the elevators. And matter of fact, these elevators I thought had been repaired some year ago or months ago or whatever. You keep redoing the same dumb stuff over. But going back to my thought, I don't think that if people in this city really understood, what you're trying to do with regard to refinance buildings that we own, that we the taxpayers have paid for, and you are going to suggest to refinance these things to help you get out of the debt that you're in, it's probably not going to work. Just like the school district here, has got a bunch of people trying to guide the school district, and it's going down the tubes, as the city is going down the tubes. And people out there should come here and understand that you them are again going to take our house, buildings that we own, and refinance those buildings for some $35 million. And as Gil had suggested, you're only spending part of that money, and I guess the rest of it you're going to hide here or there, or screw up and give it to your friends, as you have been doing. And even as you are planning tonight with some $93,000 to give to certain people as part-time and full-time people that, state tax money that you just want to take and just give. And we in this city get nothing at all for it. Look at the city and look at what is going on in this city, and people will see that we get nothing but, another bill that we are going to have to be responsible for. And I think it's wrong.
My name is Alfonso Parker, and I read 3 newspapers every day. In relevance to this subject you're speaking to, and this just came to me, we're in bad shape, but not near as bad a shape as a lot of cities. Because if you read the newspapers every day like I do, you got all these cities filing for bankruptcy and doing all kind of craziness. We're a long way, I believe, from there. It's not too late to change this situation. But if you don't, from what I hear here, and I'm listening to these people, we're headed on a fast track down that same track.
Hi, Michael Coper. So I'm trying to understand this. and it seems like it makes a lot of sense to me, but I don't know if I have the numbers right. We owe 25 million bucks, probably paying about 7% plus. We can refinance it for about 3%. We'll get an extra 10 million, which I guess seismically we need, or you know, how you spend it, that should be what's going to happen to that. But and we'll save 3 million, but not in 30 years. My math does it in 3 years or something, at a 4.5% spread.
The first 3 years.
First 3 years, so it's
There
like
would be
$1
a-
million bucks a year.
It's about 7 in total.
With that $1 million bucks a year, you can go out and borrow another 10 million or more if you want to use that. You know, you could still leverage that if you needed to for something else, because that's income. So all this happens. Now, if I was somebody borrowing money and somebody wanted to loan me money for 3%, I'll take it for 100 years. Because the 30-year bond is 2.5%. Never happened before. 10-year bond, 150, everybody should refinance their houses. You can get 3% mortgages. Never happened before. And if you guys qualify, then it's a no-brainer. It really is.
Thank you, Mr. Coker. Of course it is.
My name is Willie A.G., and I live in the beautiful city of Inglewood. It's a pleasure to hear somebody get up here and speak like this gentleman just spoke, that know what he's talking about. I say it now, I say it again, I support you people up there. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't pay these naysayers any attention. They all probably ran for office and never been elected. So keep up the good work. Thank you. I'm back from Alabama.
Thank you, Mr. A.G. Mr. Davis?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and staff. I was asked to come up and update people on a few things regarding the bond issue in question. There is a copy in the library, and it is dated July the 9th, stamped by the series people there. And it looks like those dates don't coincide, do they? I thought it was Thursday. Could we get some clarification? Thank you.
Madam City Clerk, would you give the date that you time-stamped it into the clerk's office?
Yes, sir. The items are sent down to the print shop on Thursday. First, they're received in our office, and we take the staff reports and everything that's attached to them, and we time-stamp them. On our staff report for PH 5, it was received in our office. However, this item was already down in the print shop being produced because it was a thick copy. And so we received it at 2:33, July 5th, 2012, and everybody received their books and the items on that day on Thursday, including council. And with the library, they come and pick up their books later, about 5 o'clock, 5:15. So it could be that they clocked it in on Monday, I don't know, but they did receive their book on Thursday. And we have a copy of it, and it's online, so we're clear as far as it being available to the public.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, appreciate it. Is there any closed public comments? Is there a motion and then council comment?
I so move and comment.
Second.
Mr. Franklin?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to put everyone's mind at ease with reference to the bond funds that we're looking to have and what we're going to use them for. But before I do that, let me also reflect back in 1991 when we had the bonds at that time for over $33 million. It was specifically designed to provide sprinkling system for fire sprinkling in certain floors of City Hall. It modernized the elevators, not the mechanical portions of the elevator, and it remodeled the lobby. It also replaced some of the floor and ceiling tiles in some of the floors, as well as lighting fixtures, upgrading communication systems, and expansion of the site for the police department. So those bonds was used specifically for that particular funding. The Public Works Department has specifically identified for this opportunity for us, particularly at the low interest rates, as we heard by Mr. Coper so eloquently express, identified that this is a great opportunity for the city to be able to do some more improvements that will be site-specific and identified. It does include such things as, for the General Civic Center, emergency generators for AQMD compliance, emergency generators for service center backup. For City Hall, it does talk about, for the 5 floors, of fire safety improvements, seismic upgrade for earthquake, repairing all the elevators, ADA compliance for the bathrooms, which is an issue, relocate the city council chambers from the first floor down to community room A. Also talks about the Inglewood Library, where it's going to have seismic upgrade, ADA compliance of restrooms, and repair the elevator that is much needed over there. And then the parking structure, which is right outside where you probably parked your vehicle, was going to be a seismic upgrade as well, and also ADA upgrades. And then finally, the seismic upgrades for the police department. That's the $9.3 million that you've heard our staff talk about. And these are the items by specific that will be identified and slated for that money, period. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, Councilman Morales.
Councilman Franklin did a good job of kind of pointing out what we're targeting here, but Mr. Coper actually, aside from really laying it out, he said one thing. He said it was a no-brainer, and it's true. We need to fix the things that Councilman Franklin pointed at. We have very few opportunities where this can happen. Our financial advisor is here, Mr. Reynolds, and I want him to come up, if you don't mind, Mr. Reynolds, to the microphone. Mayor, can you come up? And just kind of lay out why the timing is so right, kind of like what Mr. Coper said, but let them know, how it's different from 5 years ago and maybe 5 years in the future, how it makes sense now.
Yeah, I think you expressed it very well. We're in a period where there's historical low rates. As everyone knows who's tried to refinance their own individual residence, I mean, we've got rates that we haven't seen for a long time. Bond issues cannot be refunded at any time. It takes 10 years before you get to a period of time when you can call bonds. So you can't always take advantage of a refunding when the best rates are available. We're in a situation right now where you can refund the bonds because it's been over 10 years since the original issue they actually refunded the 91s and 99s. So you can refund them, and we're a really low rate environment.
Exactly. So I just wanted to point that out. The time frame and how we're fortunate to have that time frame when the opportunity is there for us. Right. So those are the things I wanted to point out. In terms of the Brown Act, I mean, we can always be challenged for that. We can do as much as we can. 72 hours, you do make sure the clerk has it, you confirm with the city attorney everything has been done, and then you move forward. If someone challenges it, there's a process for that. So here, what we're trying to do is make this particular action done here in public within the hearing. So thank you very much.
Any other public?
I have a question.
Councilwoman Dunlap.
Yes, Mr. Fields, it was mentioned here, fire sprinklers were installed with the proceeds from the 1991 bonds. Where?
They were not installed on all the floors, I believe.
Where?
I think the floor where
I think it was floors 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Okay.
Does anyone really know?
No, we do know that. We do know that they were installed on those floors. I can recall them right away, but we did ask Public Works, and they verified it for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that question was posed earlier with regard to how are these funds spent.
Yes.
So on 3, 4, 5, and 6, we have fire sprinklers.
Right.
Okay. And how much money was spent doing this remodeling that was referenced by one of my colleagues from the 1991 proceeds?
From the 1991, I think it was around between 1991 and the 1999 A's, there was about $6 million that was, bonded for. Part of it was for reimbursements for expenses that had already been incurred to do these renovations. And at the request of, your request of finding about how these expenses were paid and to verify where they were paid, what I was doing was researching back into the bond transcripts and as also looking into the Public Works records, as well as working with our bond counsel, who they themselves, through part of the process, had to do their due diligence to verify and confirm, because there are tax certificates that need to be confirmed and certified. And I was working with them to confirm that what these expenditures were spent on were in fact for the things that we described, the remodeling, the sprinklers, the elevators, and everything that
How are we currently, now you've had to do a lot of research looking at different sources, according to what you've just stated. So now, in the future, if someone wants to go back and look, how is this information documented and kept so that if someone wanted to go back and look at the 1991 proceeds, how are they going to see what was accomplished without going through all the source documents that you had to research?
To be honest, it was a lot of just looking at some of the records of due diligence and finding the details. There are some things that I still haven't looked at that are in Public Works as far as reports. And I'll just be very honest with the timeline that we were following. I was trying to address the issues that were raised, at the same time trying to look at what legally had already been done. You know, from an auditor's perspective, what were some of the things that we had to do, and knowing that there were certain due diligence steps that our bond counsel had to take, I relied on that to a certain extent.
Well, I would like to state to Mr. Fields that I would expect, now, we've had to do this work. She's already referenced she had to go to many source documents in an attempt to put together the information as requested by myself and possibly others with regard to how these proceeds were actually spent. I would now expect at some point in time, when you have, your staff has more time in finance, there should be some type of a database compiled that shows clearly how much money was there, how it was spent, and actually who the vendor was or contractor who provided the service, so that any member of the public who's also interested in how these funds were spent should be able to look. Because the public does not have access to any of the documents that, well, practically maybe 1% of what finance department might have. So I would expect some type of a database put together that people would be able to review if they wanted to, as members of this body as well, to see how much money was there, how it was spent, what vendors received it, and so forth. Because, so when we tell the public in the future how we're going to spend the money, they'll have the faith and the confidence that that's what we're actually going to do, that we're going to spend it exactly as we say we're going to spend it. Because we have had the bad habit in the past, the majority of not seeing to it that money was spent as it was allocated. So that is a request I'm making, Mr. Fields, and possibly within the next couple of weeks, you can give a report back to at least this member of the body, if not everyone, with regard to how you think you can achieve that with regard to putting together some type of a database. Thank you.
Jonathan Stevens.
Yes, I would just like to say to the public that I will be basing my vote solely upon what I have inquired from bond counsel last week. Ms. McQuakey, I have a question for you. In reference to a policy decision to be made in reference to how the funding shall be spent, that would be a policy decision made by this council, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, does a policy decision exist at this time as to how these funds shall be spent?
Well, part of the what's documented in the official statements is describing what the project is, and it's also describing what the proceeds, the new proceeds, will be spent on.
Okay, so the funding has been specifically identified as to how it is to be spent.
Yes, it
correct?
has. Yes.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, my biggest concern is that what took place here in the 90s, I was a resident that was visiting City Hall. I have a fire suppression systems background. And what I will tell you is this. At that time, I was not pleased, not with the fire suppression installation, but the actual aesthetics portion of the installation of the cosmetics on the floors of our planning department, as well as the two other floors. And what happened was that the contractor actually had to return back to make corrections to the stainless steel that was installed on the outside the elevator doors, even inside of the elevators. They had to actually be redone, the interior of them. So I want you to know that I will be vigilant to see to it that this funding shall be spent in an efficient and correct manner. And I will be very watchful to see to it that the workmanship that took place prior under my predecessor will not take place under my watch, and see to it that that is efficient and that the installation is done correctly the first time. Thank you, and that concludes my comments.
Okay, Ms. Quakey, though, ultimately, though, the only way to really prove how money was spent is not someone constructing a database or a document to put online. It's actually the source records, is it not?
That's correct.
And that's why you went to the source records, because anyone could have put up a list together and said it was spent on this and this and that, but unless you went back to see the receipts and invoices, you wouldn't know that. That's why you did that, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
All right. So while it would be helpful to put a report maybe online that says, as a result of my inventory, this is what I have found, but ultimately, the source documents are the proof, and you did check the source documents, and I appreciate that. That was a lot of work. First of all, let's go back to this Brown Act issue. We're required to have materials available 72 hours before the meeting. We always have materials available online in the clerk's office at a minimum. We try to have them in the library. Go ahead, Mr. City Attorney.
When you talk about the Brown Act also, Mr. Mayor, sometimes, as been noted in the past, council has not received the notice is posted 72 hours in advance. Sometimes reports have been late in the past, and council will receive the items the day of the meeting, and the public is then given the documents when they become available to the members of the body. That's what's required by law. So even when the documents are late, when they're presented to the council, they're then presented to or made available to members of the public.
Okay, so we've always met our obligations. So I want to say, don't expect that everyone is going to be able to digest everything that's out on that table. That's not the expectation, but we try to always have them available. Now let's talk about this refunding. This is a responsible thing to do. If you have a 7% loan and you can convert it to 3%, what you're doing is you're saving the people that are paying the bill, the taxpayers, 4% over time. This is going to result in more money available to the general fund to do things like fix streets, provide city services. So to not do this would be very irresponsible. Now this building, it's the people's building. It's 40 years old. The mechanics in the elevators need to be fixed. There are seismic issues. Now let's make this very clear. The people that decided to build City Hall and the library where they did, they built it on the Inglewood Newport fault. That's really unfortunate, because that puts us in a very vulnerable situation. And I'm not an engineer, but it's my understanding that if the fault shifts a certain way torsionally, there's nothing that can be done. The buildings will come down. But because of that, that doesn't mean we shouldn't shore ourselves the best we can for other types of earth movement. In the 40 years this building has been here, there have been earthquakes and it's survived, but we need to make sure that we retrofitted it as best we can. So I want to make that clear. We're on a fault. My understanding, we can save between $1 and $2 million in this fiscal year if this refunding goes through before August. That's more money for the general fund budget. So this is the people's house, it's the people's money, and we're attempting to save as much of it as we can. So that's one I want to make clear. There are repairs that need to be done. We'll make sure that they're done. The refinancing saves the city payments on those bond repayments, and it provides capital we couldn't get elsewhere, and we can't use the funds for anything but capital improvements. So I feel this is a very good thing to do for the city. Madam City Clerk?
Actually, Mayor, before we vote, a point of clarification. You mentioned that the bonds that we're refunding are 7%. I heard someone from the audience mention that. It's my understanding they're 5% and 5.25%. Which is it, Ms. Quakey, for the record?
The average, Mr. Reynolds, of the true interest cost?
They vary depending on the year. Average 6.5. Yes,
So the average is 6.5%.
Rounded up to be
Currently.
7. Thank you. Madam City
Well, wait,
Clerk.
wait, one more point of clarification.
Yes.
Also, the documents that show how this money was spent as was requested and as you reported, aren't all of those source documents matter of public record?
Yes.
They would be, yes.
Yes, well then, I think they can all be put together and compiled in a report with those attachments. Thank you.
Madam City Clerk.
Council members Stevens,
Aye.
Dunlap,
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Butts.
Aye. Consent calendar items 2 through 7.
3 through 7.
2 was pulled, Mayor.
Oh, 2 is pulled, excuse me, 3 through 7.
I so move.
Second.
Pull item 7.
Items 3, 4, 5, and 6. Madam City Clerk.
Council members Stevens,
Aye.
Dunlap,
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Butts.
Aye. Item 7.
Staff report recommending approval of a 3-year blanket purchase order with Logan's Marketing, Inc. for the purchase and delivery of 780 cubic yards of 5.5 sack concrete with 1-inch rock.
Move approval.
Second.
Staff report, Mr. Frisbee.
Actually, I just have a quick question.
Quick question, Mr. Frisbee.
Yeah, I don't really need a staff report. Thank you,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Frisbee. Do you know if Blue Diamond has this type of material, or if we sent a bid document to Blue Diamond?
Yes, we did send it to Blue Diamond. And
Well, they're not listed here. Do you know if we followed up with them at all? Since they are a local Inglewood business, it would have been nice if we could have done business with them.
Blue Diamond also works under, I'm trying to remember the other commercial name.
So maybe another name that's listed here?
Yes, we do purchase our asphalt through Blue Diamond, and this is strictly for concrete. So
Right, but they do have concrete.
not at the Inglewood facility, they do not. I believe their nearest point is the Anaheim facility for concrete purchases, and that would still come out via transit mixer. A truck would bring it out.
Okay.
So a lot of the rates are based on the distance of the
Okay,
vehicles.
well, the information that I had is that they do have concrete out of there. You're saying only asphalt? I'm only aware of
For
concrete.
the Blue Diamond portion is the asphalt. There are 2
The
companies
company
that are
off
there.
of, well, off of Florence.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Madam City Clerk.
Council members Stevens,
Aye.
Dunlap,
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Butts.
Aye. DR1 and CSA 2.
Staff report recommending adoption of a resolution amending the 2011-2012 fiscal year budget to appropriate $93,942 of tax increment unobligated fund balance monies.
So
Move 1 and
moved.
2.
Second.
Madam City Clerk.
Council members and agency members. Stevens,
Aye.
Dunlap,
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Chairman Butts.
Aye. DR2.
Staff report pertaining to the draft fiscal year 2012-2015 consolidated plan, including the fiscal year 2012-2013 annual action plan for consideration at a public hearing scheduled for July 17, 2012, to approve the consolidated plan.
Receive and file. DR3.
Staff report pertaining to the city basic financial statements and supplemental information report for fiscal year 2010-2011.
Receive and file.
I want to comment.
Comment.
Yeah. These particular financial statements and supplemental information in the past have always been given to members of this body under separate cover, whether it's redevelopment, which we would have still had, and others. And I don't believe it's in the public's interest to put them in one notebook and put them in the back, and then just before a council meeting, remove it where the council has an opportunity to see it and put it out on the table. So then no member of the body has a copy, because the copy is set out there. So I don't think that's a good idea. Now, apparently, it's necessary for this to be adopted tonight. Apparently, something to do with the bonds. Is that true?
Yes, part of the bond, the financing documents that we're sending to rating agencies and such include the financial statements. So tonight, we're asking you to receive and file on the condition that at the end of the month, the auditors will come back and do an informational workshop with the council for a Q&A session.
All right, well, I hope that vote does not have to be unanimous, because I have no intentions of voting even to receive and file, because to receive and file would give the impression still that I approve the content, which I do not. And obviously, because it's necessary, otherwise I would request my colleagues table it for 2 weeks for more study, but obviously that's not going to happen. I see that. Mr.
Well, would you like to
Fields.
make a motion for that?
No, we can't. It's for the, they have to have it for the bonds. Thank you. But you have to have it.
So,
But thank you. How many libraries do we have?
I believe we have 3 libraries?
I think it's 3.
A library has to be
Right.
open and functioning to be called a library.
Right.
2 then.
Right, 2.
2 libraries.
Well, I will say, though, that the documents were made, in fact, to the council in one location, but...
Excuse me, you're on my time. You're
Okay,
welcome
sorry.
to speak and say whatever you want in your time. The point is, we don't have 3 functioning libraries, we have 2. So that's an error in here. Having a structure that's used for storage is not a library make. So that's an error. And also, I'd like an explanation of what this means. So I'm going to read this to you, Mr. Fields, if I may. Agency funds account for monies held by the city in a trustee capacity as an agent for individuals, private organizations, and other governmental units. By the way, that makes no sense to me whatsoever. The city's agency funds are as follows. Trust and agency fund. This fund primarily accounts for funds due to other cities as part of the city's parking ticket collection services. The fund only involves receipts, temporary investments, and eventual remittances to others. That's called Trust and Agency Fund. Never heard of it. Hollywood Park CFD Fund. By the way, what does CFD stand for? It's an acronym for what?
Community Facilities District.
Okay. It says here, once again, Hollywood Park Community Facilities District. It says here, this fund primarily accounts for funds due to other cities as part of the city's parking ticket collection services. Can't possibly be true. The fund only involves the receipts, temporary investments, and eventual remittances to others. I don't believe it has anything to do with the city's parking ticket collection services, correct?
The Hollywood Park portion of that?
The Hollywood Park Communities Facilities District, what does it have to do with the city's parking ticket collection services?
Yes, you're right. The first statement was referring to the outsourcing and parking.
No, no, no.
department.
What does the Hollywood Park Communities Facilities District have to do with the city's parking ticket collection services and funds due to other cities?
I'll let Sharon Quick answer. She did work directly with the auditors, and she might be able to answer that better than I.
Page 105.
This is just a statement that it's showing them in 2 different columns, and these are reflecting agency and trust funds, and then the
Could you
Hollywood Park.
respond to my question? How does the Hollywood Park Community Facilities District have anything to do with the city's parking ticket collection services?
It doesn't, but these...
Okay, wait a minute. It does not. Is that what I heard?
That's correct.
Does not. Okay, well, I've got a real problem when we give a definition, Hollywood Park Community Facilities District Fund hyphen. Then it tells us what it is. And what you're telling me is, as I assume when I read it, has nothing to do with it. So this is, I don't want, I'm not sending something off to anybody that's so confusing and wrong. I don't know how many other errors you're not, I understand that you had to put this together in her. I understand that. This needs to be corrected. And so I'm going to abstain on the vote because I'm not going to approve this. The council majority is going to approve it, I'm sure, because it has to go out to do this. But I want staff to review this and correct it prior to going out.
And we can do that.
And anything else that might be in error, please. No, no, no. The receive and file makes it an official city document.
Receive and file.
Ms. Coik.
Yes.
Councilman Stevens.
Ms. Coik, could I ask you a question? For the public, could you please tell them the Community Facilities District, what is that exactly?
The Communities Facilities District refers to the Melrose area where Hollywood Park tomorrow, that project represents.
And we voted on Melrose about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, correct?
Yes.
Didn't we?
Yes.
And this Community Facilities District, this is for also an assessment on that property, correct? It dealt with an assessment as well as also,
This is not. What we took action on did have to do with an assessment for that project. That is different than what this is describing here is a format, it's a reporting format.
Okay.
So that's different.
All right, so the assessment itself, who manages the assessment? The homeowners association on Hollywood Park's property, or does the city manage that?
The assessments will not be managed by the city. They will be managed by whomever is appointed as, whoever is going to oversee that.
The homeowners association?
It would
if-
likely be it would likely be the special tax consultant.
Okay, but not the city?
Correct.
Okay. So now, we have this Communities Facilities District inserted into this report as though the city actually has control of that funding.
No, let me just explain. The report format that is showing here, because these are funds that the city has received as an advance deposit. The advance deposits of our monies that we have received in advance, because as part of the Hollywood Park project that has been moving along, there are certain costs that the city is using the consultants to do on behalf of the project. However, Hollywood Park has agreed that they will pay for those. So what you're seeing here are the monies that are held in on hand.
An escrow,
And
so to speak.
well, and they're being used, so we're not using the city's monies, we're using their monies.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Koike.
You're welcome.
Okay. Ms. Quakey?
Yes.
We had to put together a lot of materials really fast to try and get this done before the August 1 deadline to save the city somewhere close to $2 million. Isn't that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So there was a lot of work that had to be done in a compressed time frame to make this happen, particularly for this fiscal year, to save us money. So what was referenced was a mistake, is that right?
If it's a definition, then I'd like to go back and look at that and view that. The page that's been referenced is more of just a report format, which is documenting the agency funds or funds that we have in a fiduciary responsibility.
I don't think she's looking at the same page.
Hold on a second, it's my time right now.
Right.
This is page 105, the issue of the reference to the parking fund, and that's
Is it this
just,
page?
I just want to know if that's a mistake.
Ms. Quakey, is it this page?
If you
Yeah,
know.
I'm sorry, I was looking at the next page, I'm
Yes.
sorry, that was the
She's
format.
looking at the wrong
And Ms.
page.
Dunlap, yes, you are correct, I'm looking at a definition,
So
and we
Thank
can
you.
correct that.
It was a
Yes.
mistake, right?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so you're going to fix it, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Quick.
You're welcome.
But Mayor, had I not have brought it to the attention, it wouldn't have happened, so.
And I appreciate it.
Thank you, I'm glad, I'm
And I appreciate
appreciated.
it. Madam City Clerk?
Um,
I was just trying to put into
It's
context
receiving
the
file.
magnitude of work, and it's just receiving file, we don't have a vote. Okay.
Well, actually, we do have a vote because I'm going to
S-
abstain, so you're going to have to vote.
SPH,
Actually, since
DR3.
I object to the receive and file, I'm going to abstain, so I would I call for a vote, please.
okay.
It's not a problem, but I'll make the motion. Mr. City Attorney, is that necessary?
Yes, it is.
I would suggest you
Yeah.
vote you to be safe, so.
Yeah, I make the motion.
And I second.
Madam City Clerk?
Council members Stevens,
Aye.
Dunlap,
Abstain?
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye. SPH 1?
Staff report.
Oh, DR3,
We did that one.
we did that one.
Oh, we did?
That's one we
Yes.
just did.
That's what we just did.
SPH 1?
Staff report requesting that a public hearing be scheduled to consider a proposed amendment to Chapter 12 of the Inglewood Municipal Code to define an anchor tenant.
Set the public hearing for July 31st,
Aye.
2012 at 7 PM.
My question for Mr. Fields, please.
All right.
Mr. Fields, who is it requesting this information with regard to the definition of an anchor tenant? This work by staff is being done at whose request?
I'm not quite sure who requested it. I just know the planning commission did look at it. I'm not sure if it was a council or, but Linda will come and answer that question. I believe it was a
wants to know
council
who
request,
asked
but
for
we can verify that.
SPH 1.
Mayor, members of the council, this was a request by Councilmember Franklin when we took the shopping center standards about 4 or 5 months ago. There was a specific request to come back with a definition for shopping centers or anchor tenant.
Thank you very much.
SPH 2?
Staff report requesting that a public hearing be scheduled to adopt the delinquent refuse and sewer accounts scheduled for direct property tax assessment.
I'll move 1, 2, and 3.
Second.
Madam City Clerk?
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Dunlap.
I can pose my question after the votes?
Sure.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye. Councilwoman Dunlap.
Yes, I have a question regarding delinquent refuse charges, if I may. Okay. What is the threshold by which we place these delinquencies on a property tax bill? Is there an amount of money it must reach a certain threshold?
Maria, do you want to?
Mayor, Council, it is over $250 and being delinquent over 90 days.
Okay, delinquent over 90 days. Okay.
All right.
Do we typically have more commercial than we have residential, or is it pretty evenly?
It's pretty even, but it's more residential.
Okay. Well, how does the residential get over $300 in 90 days?
We don't have the ability to stop the service for health reasons, whereas if you had water, we're able to turn off your water. So we can bill you, we can call you. If I can't get you to pay, I cannot pull your bin or stop waste from being picked up.
Okay. And what is and Mr. Fields, under our Inglewood Municipal Code, the past due refuse can only be collected under what time frame?
I don't know that information. I don't have the code.
Actually, we just had the discussion.
6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, 6 months.
So I don't see how a residential customer can ever get over $300 if they're only liable for 6 months. I mean, that's not your, I'm just saying, I think we need to look at this. If our municipal code states that they're only liable for 6 months delinquency, a residential customer, therefore, would never be liable for more than 6 months. And yet, the threshold is $300, can never get to be 300. They can not pay, can run it up that far, but under our code. So either we need to modify the code, Mayor,
We do
to
need
protect the city.
We do need to modify
because
the code.
as of right now, it doesn't make sense. The threshold is $300, but the code says 6 months is the maximum amount they can be charged for past due.
Yep, that's a very good point.
So, all right.
All
So
right.
we need
So
to,
we need to study the ordinance.
Yeah,
and
we need to
change it.
have the ordinance.
We need to fix the ordinance.
Fixed. So
Okay.
that's a policy, some policy work, Mr. Fields, if you would please get something to the council so that we are acting appropriately when we place delinquent refuse rates on people's property taxes. Because if we, which we have done in the past for for amounts, we're not even complying with our own municipal code. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, so we voted and you asked the question after, right? Did we vote on SPH 2, Madam City Clerk?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
CM1,
No verbal reports.
A1,
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. There was a closed session held as to CS1 closed session confidential attorney-client privilege pending litigation under Government Code Section 54956.9A, City of Inglewood versus Inglewood Unified School District. Discussions were held, however, no final action was taken. There was a closed held as to CS2 closed session confidential attorney-client privilege pending litigation under Government Code Section 54956.9A, Rafael Jimenez versus City of Inglewood. Also, I'd like to point out this is combined with CS3 closed session confidential attorney-client privilege pending litigation under Government Code Section 54956.9A, Irma Rentiera Jimenez versus Moorbark, Inc. Request a motion to approve payment of cost to AMCO Insurance.
So moved.
Second.
Madam City Clerk.
Council members Stevens.
Aye.
Dunlap.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye.
There was a closed session held as to CS4, closed session, confidential attorney-client privilege, potential litigation under Government Code Section 54956.9B1, claim of Trans Tech Engineering, Inc. Motion to approve payment of billing.
So moved.
Second.
Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Dunlap.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye.
There was a closed session held as to CS5, closed session, confidential attorney-client privilege, potential litigation under Government Code Section 54956.9B1, claim of Accu-Temps. Request a motion to approve payment of billing.
So moved.
Second. Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Dunlap.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye.
CS6 and CS7 were pulled, and there are no verbal reports, Mr. Mayor.
CC1, Madam City Clerk. Thank
No.
you, Mr. City Attorney.
No reports, Mayor.
CT1, Madam City Treasurer.
Yes, I'd like to report to the council and the attending public that I did make one bond purchase and the amount of $1 million. It was a federal home loan bond, and the coupon amount is 1.05%. It's a 5-year non-call for 6 months. And also would like to report of the, the $51 million of bond purchases that have been made. Roughly about $12 million have been called, and that's primarily because the interest rates are declining, and the rate at which I purchased these bonds were above the current rate, which is roughly about 1.04, 1.05 for a 5-year instrument. You got to go out that far just to get a little bit above 1%. The bonds in the 2, 3, and 4-year bonds are all under 1%. So 5-year bonds are the only thing that's yielding anything above 1%. And generally a 5-year non-call for 6 months or a year, and they're generally always called at the call date. I expect 80% of this portfolio to be called. The only thing that I'll probably be left with is probably the 1%ers, because again, you got to go out 5 years just to get 1%. And with regards to the bonds, the bank failures, roughly thus far, there have been just one that failed in Georgia, and the total bank failures thus far have been 449 banks, and the total asset of these failed banks is $690 billion, and the loss to the FDIC is $84 billion. And as I mentioned, roughly there's about 800 banks that are still on the watch list. Most of these are small banks, small community banks for the most part, because all the large banks have paid back all of the TARP money. The little banks have not paid back the money for the most part, and thus far that exposure is $11 billion that these small community banks do owe, because a total bailout banks were 707 banks, and roughly about 324 of these community banks have not paid back any of the TARP money, and many of them have been late on just the first TARP payments. So they expect many of these banks will probably fail within the next 2 to 3 years, and some will be, of course, taken over by some of the larger banks. And also, as I mentioned, with regards to the state pool, the state pool has roughly about just to give you a little information regarding what their balances was for 2008-9, the state pool was roughly $63.5 billion, and their earnings in that year was $2.7 billion. In 2009-10, the pool was roughly about $65 billion, and the earnings was just $423 million. Big difference. And in 2011, it's $67.2 billion, and the earnings is $332 million. Again, in 2007-8, it was $2.7 billion. So the interest rates are just so low. The states and all of the municipalities are having a great deal of have very, very low incomes that's coming in as a result of earnings. Because as I mentioned, there's no offerings at all in the 1-year bonds at all. And the offerings that are offered in the 2, 3, and 4 years are all under 1%. So the only bonds that are being offered that's more than 1% is in the 5-year range. And again, they're usually 5-year, 3 years, meaning that it might be called in 3 months, or 5 years, 6 months, be called in 6 months, or 5 year, 1 year. But you can hardly get even 1 year's call protection anymore because of the economic condition that's going on currently. That concludes my report and my remarks.
Initiative by Councilmember Stevens recommending that the City of Inglewood seek indemnification from the County of Los Angeles Metropolitan Transportation Authority for the cost of reopening and operating the Centinela Fire Station when the Crenshaw LAX light rail line is complete.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Colleagues, what I'm attempting to do here, you know, the mayor has stepped forward and he has exercised his due diligence in negotiating with MTA in reference to the Florence and Centinela crossing. But a gentleman's in our audience here. His name is Mr. Little. Mr. Little, I'd like for you to stand up and take a bow, sir. This gentleman was successful with bringing forward a litigation, Faithful Central Bible Church, in reference to a crossing. Isn't that Mr. Little, sir? Oh, I'm sorry, the gentleman with the glasses on. That's the, man, I am getting old, huh? Man, okay, I'm sorry. I apologize, but Mr. Little with Faithful Central Bible, yes. Mr. Little was successful with Faithful Central Bible Church, and he successfully was able to, oh no, I know Mr. Stovall. No, over to your right there in the tan jacket there, next to Frank. Is that James? It is James. Okay. My point is that, colleagues, the mayor has definitely exercised his due diligence in attempting to negotiate with MTA, and I'm just of the opinion that we need it. We need to simply pull the trigger with MTA. I understand that in doing so, oftentimes you bring forward litigation, and when you do that, people oftentimes step away from the table. But this issue of the Centinela Florence crossing is so important that we have that below grade. And I want to tell you, I just wanted to show you a few things here if I can, quickly. Ms. Watson was nice enough to assist me with this. And see, am I able to work this, Ms. Watson? Maybe I've got it. I don't know. Well, that wasn't it. Okay. Oh, there we are. This is Centinela currently at rush hour traffic. This is at Warren Lane. And after Warren Lane, there's about, another block of traffic. I took this picture. And now that's the traffic from about 4 o'clock until about 6 o'clock. The issue becomes this, is that when we used to have the cargo facility, not the cargo facility, but the freight line that used to run across here on Florence, the reason why a fire station was placed on the northern side of Florence was because of, my goodness, okay, was because of the fact that the people in northern Inglewood needed to be able to have fire truck access. The fire department needed to be able to gain access to them in the event that there was a catastrophe, a derailment of the freight liners, of the freight lines that traveled up and down Florence. Now what we're going to have is we're going to have a combination of light rail as well as freight traveling down Florence. If a disaster was to happen, the people on the northern side of Florence would not have, they would be virtually cut off from the fire department. The only fire service that would be able to assist them would in fact be the fire station over at Slauson and Fairfax. Now the average response time in cities such as Culver City, the average response time, if you take a look at this is from MTA. If you look at the very bottom, it says City Fire Department has maintained a response time of 5 minutes at the very bottom there, or less. Now that's what Culver City response time is. We move over here to Santa Monica. Santa Monica's response time, Santa Monica Fire Department maintains an average response time of 4 to 6 minutes, which is consistent with the National Fire Protection Association standard, 6 minutes. Now, when we start talking about this fire station, it's just where the circle is there. It says Centinela Fire Station in the lower left-hand circle there. What we're talking about is that the response times will be severely impacted. And if they're severely impacted, that means the response time for Inglewood residents in the northern part of Inglewood, my residents who live around Centinela Park, those residents right there, they will in fact not have fire department. The fire department will not be able to gain access to assist them. And so the purpose of this is simply this. Faithful Central was successful at achieving something very quickly, and they stood up. And what they were able to achieve was that they were able to achieve a gate crossing for their parishioners to be able to cross the future LAX Crenshaw line. It's been approved. And if you take a look at this here, colleagues, we have a meeting here in the city of Inglewood on May 16th. July 16th. On July 16th. And on July 16th, we are going to have this meeting. And if you take a look here at these items here, just take a look at them, you will see that.
Did you put one out for the public?
Yes, the public has them. And if you take a look at them, what you will see, and Ms. Dunlap, you can have this one here. You will see the bullet point right here. It says right here, it says July 16th, Inglewood City Hall, but it says right here, street, driveway, sidewalk modification, and pedestrian crossing improvements, including a mid-block pedestrian crossing near Eucalyptus Street and Florence Avenue. Well, that's Faithful Central, and what they were successful at doing was obtaining their own crossing on their property from MTA. And the reason they were able to do that is because not that the mayor has not negotiated with them in good faith, but that oftentimes entities, in my opinion, in dealing with LAX, they don't really move until they see your gun. And I would just like to ask the city attorney, would it be possible, rather than us having to go out and seek legal counsel, would it be possible for our own legal staff in-house to simply duplicate what Faithful Central was successful at doing in challenging MTA, but not only compensation for the fire station, because understand, once they are operating, MTA is operating, that light rail line, they are going to be looking for the city of Inglewood to pay for that fire station. They've made no reference to that fire station in their EA, in their environmental assessment, or in their environmental impact report of who is actually going to be responsible for reopening that station or paying for it, number one. Number two, the second issue is that we need to have that crossing below grade. And we also need to have an elevated pedestrian crossing, if nothing else, for the children who attend St. John's School, which is here, the school, which is here, okay? So I would just like to ask you, Mr. City Attorney, is this something that your legal department could handle, rather than us having to farm this out?
Your first question had to do with looking at what Faithful Central did and make a determination. So I would have to look at what the issue was, what the specific factual situation is, and is that applicable to what we're talking about. So without seeing the actual documents, I couldn't really tell you whether we could duplicate it or whether it's an entirely different set of factual circumstances we'll have to address.
Okay, I understand. Ms. Watson, your report, was that just distributed to me in reference to what Faithful Central was successful at doing? No. And I appreciate that report, too.
Yeah, the litigation report was provided to all the council.
Was it provided to all the council?
Okay, I was just corrected. You were provided with the entire litigation.
Okay.
Other council members were given a summary of the litigation.
Okay. All right. Well, on my point, colleagues, is that I would just like to suggest that we, since we have a meeting here on July 16th in the Inglewood City Hall, and MTA, and this issue is going to be before us. The issues that are going to be before the public at this public hearing are, in fact, relocation of the optional off-street Crenshaw Vernon Station and Crenshaw Boulevard Vernon Avenue to N Street north of 43rd Street. Relocation of the optional Aviation Manchester Station, renamed the Florence Hendry Station to Florence Hendry Station, to Florence and Hendry Avenue. Street, drive, sidewalk modifications and pedestrian crossing improvements, including a mid-block pedestrian crossing near Eucalyptus Street and Florence Avenue. This is what Faithful Central was successful at. A shift of partial portions of the alignment back to the former Burlington Northern Santa Fe right-of-way. Now, these are the issues that are going to be before us here at City Hall on July 16th, and the public, they wish to have your opinion, your input. So, colleagues, all I'm asking is that at this point in time, we just simply pull the trigger and move forward with some type of either, if nothing else, a letter stating solidly that we wish to have that crossing below grade. We wish for the fire station to be paid for by MTA, the reopening of it, and we just take a more proactive position.
Okay.
If nothing else, on the fire station.
Right. Okay. Councilman Stevens and I talked about this at length, and it's a very good initiative. It broaches a very important point, and that's the issue of fire protection. As a little background, we have sent a number of letters, at least two, to the board, to Mayor Villaraigosa, explaining our extreme displeasure that this is not below grade. We also I've been engaged in meetings with the MTA, some members of the MTA board, Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas. We have a meeting coming up including Faithful Central Bible Church, hoping to involve Father Gonzalez. It's from St. John's, again to stress our extreme desire that the MTA fund the below grade option for Florence and Centinela. It's about a $35 million endeavor. Say it again, 25? 25 is 10 million cheaper, but it's still too expensive for the city to pay for. I don't know that we're similarly situated as the church would be in bringing litigation against the MTA for their plans, because we signed into an agreement way back when we got involved in this. I believe that our strongest strength is political, and I agree with you that we could send another letter, but I'm trying to work with the powers that be to give us similar consideration to the Wilshire line, which is undergrounded almost in its entirety, as a matter of parity. So that's where we're approaching it from. But if you'd like for us to send another letter, I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. The only problem with threatening litigation is that, especially litigation where I think we've given away our litigation rights, that would kind of shut down dialogue, and I wouldn't want us to do that.
Well, we can discuss it offline.
Okay.
I can bring this item back at a later date and time.
Okay.
Colleagues, but I just feel that with this such a pressing issue, and of course MTA is coming to our city hall on the 16th, and with Faithful Central being successful at getting their own crossing gate, I just felt that it was time for us basically to step up and just pull that trigger. But we can discuss this further offline.
And I totally agree with you on the issue of the fire station, pressuring them at the very least to consider funding the reopening of the station. It's about $1.8 million a year, I believe.
Well, our calculations were 2.5, but
Oh, 2.5.
I understand that Los Angeles County controls our fire department as far as what they charge, and so it very well may be cheaper. Could be cheaper.
No, I guess it's now it's 2.5. It was 1.8 when we last paid. I guess costs have gone up. All right.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
Councilwoman.
I've got some comments.
Donna.
Actually, at the time that that station was closed against my wishes, I think the savings to the city was 2.5 at that time. And we actually owe it to this community to reopen it. I mean, that's something the city should be doing. We never should have closed it, and we need to consider reopening it. However, I would like to state that I would hope a large number of Inglewood residents would go to the meeting that my colleague to my right referenced on Monday. I think that's very important for you to show up. There's lots of things for you to talk about if you go. And after all, when you are there, you make a difference politically. It's far more impacting than a letter, which we can do. But you need to show up and you need to talk about those things that are that you're interested in, like having it like on Wilshire Boulevard. What's wrong with, maybe we'd like to have it underground as well. And something else I would like for us to consider as a community and for you to think about is that now that Madison Square Garden is a reality, or going to be, they own the Forum, And Hollywood Park tomorrow is moving forward. I want to remind everyone that with regard to the route of the light rail, it was determined that it didn't go down Prairie or come down Crenshaw down Forum Way, or it didn't go Florence across Prairie going southbound. They said there was a lack of ridership. Well, you know what? There's almost 300 acres of undeveloped property that's going to be developed in the heart of our city. Oh, no, no, no. What we should be lobbying for and getting Madison Square Garden to lobby for and Hollywood Park to lobby for, no, we want the route changed. They don't have shovels in the ground. Everything's still on the table. They can bring it down Florence, and then when they get to Prairie, they need to go southbound. And Madison Square Garden, what a boom to them, and that's to us. That's money to us. When that project is successful, people coming in there for all these events and venues, like in New York, that's why anywhere there's subways or train stations, that's what makes venues successful. It brings bodies there. And then also the Hollywood Park tomorrow, going down Prairie, that's what we need to be lobbying for. Underground and going down Prairie before it goes to the airport. And guess what? If it goes to the airport, it goes back the other way. All the hotels at the airport can bring consumers into the city of Inglewood. How refreshing that would be. We haven't had consumers coming to this city in many, many years. We want consumers to come. We want people to shop at our shopping centers. We want people to go to the Hollywood Park tomorrow project. We want people to go to Madison Square Garden. That could be a regular venue for people at the airport staying at all those hotels, Madison Square Garden, all those events. Look at the money we could make. That's what we need to be lobbying for. So I'd like you to think about those things and come out on Monday night. It's here at the first floor of City Hall, as my colleague referenced. Starts at 6 o'clock. Think about it and come and talk about it. And we will do what we can as a body to solicit the support of the corporate entities who will be the beneficiaries of this as well. And that would be Betfair, Hollywood Park tomorrow, and Madison Square Garden. I've already broached the subject with the CEO of Betfair. He loved the idea, of course, why wouldn't he? Bringing people there, thousands and thousands of people, generating revenue for them, generating revenue for the city of Inglewood. So let's be forward thinking. And when they remind us, oh, well, there's no ridership, that's why, we weren't going to go down Prairie, we need to remind them, 300 undeveloped acres in a prime location. That's what we're looking at. That is an absolute economic windfall for all of Southern California, really. We just have to do it right. We have to think right. We have to think progressively. And let's get people to that meeting. Let's talk about it. Thank you.
Mayor.
Councilman Franklin.
Yes, let me just back up a little bit with reference to my colleague in District 2. Brought up exploring the possibility of using Prairie Avenue as a potential artery for the light rail. That item has been vetted for many years. Metro has repeatedly shared with us to explore that option would take away the light rail system to come through Inglewood, period. They do not own any of the properties, and they would have to do land acquisition not only for the 300 acres that she was citing, but going all the way from Florence to Imperial Highway to tie into the Green Line in order to finish over at the Aviation and Imperial Highway. They own no land, and it would be cost prohibitive. And so that issue has been vetted. In fact, I'll date myself. When our former mayor Roosevelt Dorn and I were here, we were sitting right out there with you when we had a number of mayors and council members in the South Bay vetting over the concept of even having a light rail system coming in through the South Bay area. And that we did raise those issues because we had the vision, it was already on the plans, that the Hollywood Park development was taking place. And now with our new mayor on board, now we're adding MSG as part of the plans. Clearly is a major boost for the cities, for economy. But as far as bringing the rail system, it was identified that there is an agreement with Santa Fe to be able to have Metro use those current lines and maybe add another line that's being explored to be able to accommodate the influx of traffic that's going to go. And then we're looking at having the bus systems that may be needed to splinter the people at the bus stop, I'm sorry, the train stop that's going to be right off of near Regent and Florence to be able to accommodate the stopping here in Inglewood. And the whole key is we also want to get downtown. We also want to get near the senior center, or seniors, which is predominantly in that location as well. And then also, I like Councilmember Stevens's comments regarding the concern with reference to the safety feature when he talked about the emergency team response. Clearly, this council has to weigh in under the consideration of reactivating that fire station. We just have to make sure we have the revenue to do that. And with this upcoming development, we will be able to meet that threshold as long as there's no more hiccups in the economy. And so we're looking to do that because we understand the response time that's going to be needed for the northern part of the residents in the city of Inglewood has to be dealt with. And clearly we can't keep keeping that closed. So that was a good thought. I also want to conclude by saying that last fall, in fact, Mayor Butts and I personally went to U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein, and we asked about the funding that could be made available specifically for the intersection of Centinela and Florence. And that funding that we came up with is that we were told to pick our priorities. And that clearly is something that we council as a whole, in fact unanimously, has identified that we want to do some form of improvement other than what is currently being recommended by Metro, whether it is at grade, below grade, or above grade. But clearly, we understand where District 1 council members' position is. We're all on the same page, and that's now and the mayor has had repeated meetings. I have repeated meetings with Metro board members to identify that we're not giving up. And so we've clearly identified here collectively as a team that we're not giving up, and we are going to be pursuing that. So thank you very much, Mayor, for their comments.
Thank you, Councilman Franklin. Councilman Morales.
Thank you. And I know we've gone over everything pretty deep, but we were all present when we started the conversation in terms of crossing the route into Prairie, down into Hollywood Park, near MSG's new property now. And as Councilman Franklin pointed out, since there's no properties there, not only would it cost a tremendous amount of money and outprice MTA from coming through the city of Inglewood, but the time it would take, if even they had the amount of money to do it, would extend the project out another 5-10 years easy. With eminent domain. It's taken them quite a bit of time to assemble the land that they've assembled so far. In regards to the church, Faithful Central, they did do a good job stepping forward. We're looking for a different type of resolution, a more costly resolution to the MTA. This would create the type of situation where we're asking for more. I've been a part of a number of meetings. I know we have one scheduled here coming up, I think, at the end of the month as well with some of the decision makers. As I told Mr. Stevens before the council meeting, this is actually a great initiative in terms of focusing on the public safety. Equally, what the MTA is going to probably do is break down how much the time of response is from the closest fire station, which is the Slauson and Fairfax. Since we had our own fire station there, we have numbers we can compare them to. That's going to be valuable information. But then we want to know how soon we could get to a resolution without it costing this legal bag of money, this huge amount. So as the mayor pointed out, the actual conversations that we're having with the decision makers, which are the elected officials on the county level, are the valuable conversations that need to be had. If we extend to a lawsuit, what would happen is they would be guarded. They wouldn't be encouraged to open up a valued communication, to come to a resolution in any one meeting. So I think we've all said the same thing in regards to the initiative. We're extremely supportive. I actually, it was a good thought to bring up safety. I still think we should. Getting back to the actual initiative and the action we could take tonight, Mr. Stevens, I am supportive of creating a letter either from the mayor specifically or from the council as a whole, specifically addressing your issue to see if we can get a conversation started on the resolution for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so then, Mr. Mayor?
Well, just a couple of things. One, excellent points about the public safety aspect. Excellent points. And Councilman Stevens has been a diehard all along about the undergrounding of that particular intersection. But I want to reiterate, this is something we've all worked in concert on. My hope is that the answer to it is political, that Assemblyman Bradford will take care of this for us. Would you stand up and say hi, sir?
Stand up if it's a guarantee.
This is our
Thank you.
Assemblyman, you guys. And we want to keep working the back channels as we have. It would be my preference to table it for some period of time, but I'd be supportive of sending a letter that specifically referenced the issues related to fire service. I think first we need to do some research to corroborate that we do have a lesser response time since we've lost Fire Station 2, so that we know exactly what we're talking about. So I think right now the first thing we should do is get with LA County Fire, confirm the response differential from when we had Fire Station 2 in operation. And if there is a differential, then I think that we have another arrow in our quiver to lobby for the undergrounding at the very least, and if not, for the funding of in some manner of that return of that station.
Okay. So, okay, Mr. Mayor, so what we would need to do is give direction to staff at this point in time?
Exactly. And the first thing to do is to get a study from LA County Fire to assess the differentials since Fire Station's been closed, to get a call sample of maybe the last, it's been 5 years? It's been 5 years. Maybe a 5-year call sample, both paramedic runs and fire calls, to see if there is a degradation in service level. And then bring it back to Councilman Stevens, myself, or shared with the entire body. And then we'll decide how we're going to use this from there.
Very good, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
I concur.
Oh, 3 years. It's been 3 years. 3 years. So that's all we're going to have. Okay. Thank you. We're going to call the City of Inglewood successor agency to order. Madam City Clerk.
A quorum is present, but Mayor, we did that one.
We did that one?
Yes, sir.
Well,
It
then
was a
we'll
dual
adjourn
item.
that. Did we do F1 as well?
No. We did not.
So call to order the Inglewood Public Financing Authority.
A quorum is present.
F1.
Staff report recommending adoption of a resolution authorizing the issuance of a not-to-exceed $35 million aggregate initial principal amount of City of Inglewood Public Financing Authority lease revenue bonds, Series 2012A, approving the execution and delivery of various related documents in connection with the offering and sales of such bonds and other matter related thereto.
Move adoption.
Second.
Madam City Clerk.
Agency members Stevens.
Aye.
Dunlap.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Chairman Butts.
Aye. Adjourn the Public Financing Authority back to the Inglewood City Council. Public comments. Any persons wish to address City Council on any matter connected with city business not elsewhere considered may do so at this time. Okay. Assemblyman Bradford, did you want
Do you want to say something?
Please, Mr. Coper, he defers to you.
Okay, hi guys. So, good work, Councilman Stevens, on the MTA stuff. I am taking a little different take on the MTA, but get all you can out of them, because the way I'm looking at it is that people are coming, because the ridership in that area is so small, people are going to be transported to the airport and they're going to come through Inglewood. Nobody in Inglewood is going to take that train to the airport. So they're just coming through Inglewood. We get not a whole lot of benefit. We get some, but not a whole lot. Actually, they need us more than we need them. I think going down Prairie If you had a chance to use it or lose it, I would go for going down Prairie, because Prairie will never get fixed. Between Century and the 105, we're looking at a lifetime before that place becomes in this era. If we get the train down there, not only will it take out the street and bring all nice new things, it'll actually eliminate blight. The roads need to be fixed. Everything gets done at one time. So if you stall and it takes another 5 years, or you may lose it, what do you lose? You lose letting people come through Inglewood to go to the airport a little faster. What you gain, if you can get them to go for it somehow, is you gain Prairie being rebuilt in our lifetimes. So that's a good idea. If you can get it done, it's worth it. So next good idea. The bond thing, excellent. But let's go one step further. We're buying 1% bonds from every other city in the world. Why don't we take our 1% and buy our own bonds? We save another 2%. Why would we want to go out and buy other people's for 1%? Or why don't we pay ourselves 3%? Think out of the box. Everybody's doing it, or else they're going broke. It's another way of just shuffling things around. And let's go to the next good idea. I saw something the other day on TV. I couldn't believe it. 40% of the kids graduating from college, 40% can't get a job. They have no chance of a job, and they're out doing things called apprenticing. All these very Fortune 500 companies let them come to work for nothing. Why? They have nowhere to go. They learn how to answer the phones. They learn how to file, and they start getting on track. They're getting traction for their lives in the future. Well, we're open 4 days a week here. People in economic development, the managers are answering telephones. Nobody has any extra time. Get some of these apprentices. They'll be happy to come here. It won't cost anything. And they're all college graduates. It'll bring a little life into the city. Free.
Thank you.
Michael Benbow, First District. First of all, I'd like to piggyback Michael's comments concerning the lines. And I've served on the council, not on the council, on the commission, Parking and Traffic Commission for some times now. And I can remember the conversation and I verified that what the council members up there have said about having started on this some time ago. But the things that I'd like to say about it is that Metro showed no interest in doing anything that we asked them to do. And when we spoke of those lines and the Hollywood Park development also, and at that particular time they were not exactly that, but that's where we knew our future in Inglewood, the money was coming from. And we expressed that to them then. They showed no indication that they wanted to join with us in making that come possible. And that's where the problem lies, in my mind. They've done absolutely nothing, and we've gotten practically nothing from them in developing that stream of money flow through Inglewood and out through the airport, wherever it was. We've never got any positive information, nor have we got any kind of inclination that that was going to happen. And we followed it from the beginning. I went to meetings with the past mayor. I went to meetings and I saw some of the other councilmen there, and they've not indicated they want to be a partner with Inglewood. That's the problem. From the beginning, that's the problem. And they're proving it every day. They got lines that'll go underground on top of the world and all around the world out there out west. But when it comes down here in the urban area, oh no, there's a problem. Every solution we brought to the table, there was a problem with it. Well, it's all a problem until you deal with it, until you make it not a problem. And that's the one thing that we haven't been getting from them, is for them to consider it a problem for us if we don't get this done to rebuild our community. And I think that you are taking an aggressive move, and that's what's needed to get this done. Because we will be ignored from here on if we don't move, and move now.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Jose Beltran. I'm an organizer with the Clean Car Wash campaign. This is a campaign focused on cleaning up the car wash industry that has historically violated workers' rights, labor rights, and also environmental has not complied with the environmental issues. I'll be translating for the following gentlemen that are going to go ahead and address the council and mayor.
Muy buenas noches, mi nombre es Julio César Ponce, vivo aquí en Inglewood.
Good evening, my name is Julio Ponce and I am a resident of the city of Inglewood.
Y trabajé 9 años en Century Car Wash. Ahí no los pagaban, no los pagaban overtime, los pagaban $50 al día, no los daban lonche.
And I worked at a Century Car Wash for 9 years. They did not respect the overtime laws. I used to work for $50 a day, and we were not given any lunch breaks.
Y también no los daban protección para usar los químicos.
And we were also not given any safety and protection equipment.
Nos gritaban y también no, durante ese tiempo hasta la vez creo que no hay un marcador para ponchar tarjeta.
And we were constantly yelled at, and for a really long time there was no clocking in or clocking out system.
Y así que y también en el mes de marzo de este año, pues el señor, el jefe, dueño, digamos, llegó y se presentó hacia nosotros.
And I'm going to share briefly a story about the owner who came to us late in March.
Con un documento que quería que le firmáramos, en la cual donde él, pues el mismo documento manifestaba de que si la compañía o empresa lo debía dinero, pues que escribiéramos la cantidad.
He presented us with a piece of paper which stated that if the company owed us any money,
Pues como yo me negué a firmarlo, pues en ese mismo momento pues me dijo que me tomara una semana de vacación, y a los 3 días de esa semana pues ya me hablaron por teléfono que fuera a traer el último cheque porque ya quedaba suspendido definitivamente.
and because I refused to sign this document that stated that I was not going to be owed any wages if I signed the paper, I was immediately laid off for a whole week, and further on I was just called in to pick up my last paycheck.
Y por eso les pedimos a ustedes, nosotros, de que los apoyen a digamos que ya no haya tanta injusticia en la industria carguachera, porque somos muy maltratados ahí.
And we're here simply to ask for your support so that these types of injustices don't happen in the car wash industry. That's all.
Thank you.
Buenas noches a todos, mi nombre es Benito Mendoza.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Benito Mendoza.
Soy ex trabajador del Crenshaw Imperial Car Wash.
I'm an ex-car wash worker from Crenshaw Imperial Car Wash.
Trabajé como un año más o menos, y en este tiempo pasé muchas injusticias por los patrones Perla Roque y su hijo Daniel.
And I worked for approximately 1 year, and I experienced many of injustice by the owner Pearl Rocket and Daniel Rocket.
Yo me caí de la escalera y me lastimé mi espalda, pero pues ellos no nos quieren ayudar en nada.
I fell off of a ladder and I injured my back, and they are still unwilling to do anything about that.
No nos daban descansos, ni a veces no podíamos ir al baño tampoco, porque nos descansaban, nos mandaban a la casa.
And we weren't even allowed to go to the restroom or take a break, because if we did so, we would be sent home.
En ese tiempo yo me sentía todo estresado por el exceso de trabajo, porque nos hacían trabajar como bestias.
And for that period, I was stressed out because we were forced to work like beasts of burden.
Es por eso que estoy aquí pidiendo su ayuda para que ya no vuelva a suceder en estos trabajos, porque pues son injusticias que no merecemos.
And this is why I'm here in front of you, so that these types of injustices don't keep continuing to happen, because they're not supposed to.
Pienso que nos deben de tratar como seres humanos. Les pido su ayuda y gracias.
I believe we should be treated like human beings, and I ask for your
Casey, that's all I had to do. All right. Continue.
Buenas noches.
Can we continue on anyway, right? Yeah. All right, continue.
Buenas noches. Mi nombre es Mariano Baranda.
Okay, hold on one second. There's an area outage. We're on emergency power right now. So just want to let you know that. Go ahead.
Soy residente de la ciudad de Inglewood.
My name is Mario Aranda, and I'm a resident of the city of Inglewood.
Trabajé en el centro de Carguas por 10 años. Hasta el 2 de septiembre tuve un accidente.
And I worked at Century Car Wash for about 1 year until I had an accident.
Me han pagado bien poquito. Antes me pagaban 35 hasta $50 por de 8 a 6.
And I started off working for $35 a day, earning up to a maximum of $50 a day.
Le pido de favor que me puedan ayudar en ese caso porque mi compañero le están pagando muy poquito.
And that, I ask for your help because I have friends that are still working at that car wash and they are still not getting paid minimum wage.
El 2 de septiembre de 2011 tuve un accidente en el trabajo, centro de Carguas.
And in September 2nd, 2011, I had an accident at that car wash.
Y hasta ahorita, hasta el momento, me están pagando muy poquito, las 2/3 de lo que yo ganaba.
And right now, I'm receiving about 2/3 of what I originally earned at that car wash.
Ojalá le pido de favor que me puedan ayudar por mis compañeros y por mí también, que nos están explotando mucho.
And I hope that you can help my fellow coworkers and my friends because they're still being exploited. Thank you.
Thank you.
Buenas noches a todos. Mi nombre es Jaime Guerra. Trabajé en el Imperial Carwash alrededor de 8 meses. Me trataban mal, me gritaban y me insultaban y todos los patrones, Perra Roque y Daniel Roque, su hijo.
Good evening, everyone. I am also a resident of City of Inglewood, and I used to work at that car wash for about 8 months, and I was treated really badly by Pearl Rocket and Daniel Rocket.
Y trabajábamos en un área peligrosa, les pedíamos equipo y no nos querían dar. Si les decíamos que nos dieran equipo, y trataban con mandarnos a la casa temprano.
And I used to work in a real dangerous area, and we were not given any protection equipment or safety equipment. And when we would complain about this, we were threatened with being sent home.
Y nos trataban peor que animales. Y les quiero pedir a ustedes su mayor cooperación para que nos ayuden a cambiar las cosas en ese cargo.
And we were treated worse than animals, and we're asking for your support so that these conditions don't remain.
Sí. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Muy buenas noches a todos. Mi nombre es Isaac Álvarez. También soy un ex trabajador del Century Car Wash.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Isaac Alvarez. I am also an ex-car wash worker from Century Car Wash.
Yo trabajé ahí 4 años y medio y los primeros 8 meses que trabajé lo trabajé solo por los tips.
I worked there for about 4 years and a half, and for the first few months I was working there for just tips.
De ahí me comenzaron pagando $50, nomás los fines de semana. Trabajaba 6 días, jornadas de 10 horas y nomás me pagaban 3 días a la semana.
And eventually I was, I guess, given a raise of $50 per day on weekends, but I still worked approximately 6 days per week.
También fui despedido por cuando el dueño quiso hacer un acuerdo con nosotros por todo el tiempo que le habíamos trabajado. No quiso que le firmáramos un acuerdo entre él y nosotros de que por el tiempo que no nos debía nada de dinero.
And I was also in that situation where the owner presented us with a piece of paper saying that we were not owed any back wages or any overtime for the time that we had been working there. And I was also fired for not signing that piece of paper.
Es por eso que este día solicitamos a todos ustedes que nos den apoyo para poder cambiar tantas injusticias que están pasando en los car wash en la ciudad de Inglewood, parar todos los robos de salarios que se les hacen a mis compañeros que todavía se encuentran trabajando en ese lugar.
And that is also why I'm here to ask for your support so that these types of injustices don't continue happening at that car wash, because I have friends and coworkers who are still there and they are still experiencing these types of injustices.
Se los pido encarecidamente, ya que de ese trabajo viven nuestras familias y podemos colaborar también al apoyo de la ciudad para mejorar y engrandecer Inglewood. Gracias.
And I am pleading with utmost respect, because these are jobs that, and they are the livelihood of many of my coworkers. And a lot of these coworkers also live in the city of Inglewood, and these workers want to thrive in the city of Inglewood and make it a better place.
Thank
you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rosemary Molina, and I'm an organizer with the Clean Car Wash campaign. Thank you for listening to the stories of my colleagues over here, these car wash workers, and thank you to the council members who have started dialogue with us. As you've heard from these car wash workers this evening, there are grave injustices happening in the city of Inglewood in these car washes. We are here today asking for the support of the City Council. We would like for the City Council to explore proactive ways to address these injustices, and we would like to start an open dialogue with any council member who's willing to help, even give us advice, any small idea that you might have. We especially want to hear from members who are committed to improving this industry to benefit the City of Inglewood, the residents, and more importantly, the workers who live and work here. You may have seen workers picketing outside of Century Car Wash, standing up for their rights, fighting for their American dream. They've been joined by the teachers of Inglewood, janitors, hotel workers, airport workers, students, even neighbors have come out to help us picket when they learned of what's happening there. And the workers are very willing to share their stories out there on the picket line. The community has figured out what they're going to do as individuals and as a group to stop the exploitation that's occurring at these car washes, and so now we're asking the City Council to join us in that effort. As community leaders and elected officials, we would like to see what roles you can play to help stop this exploitation, to make sure this doesn't happen anymore in our community. It's very preventable. And we'd also like to see if anyone can play a role in facilitating productive dialogue between owners and workers. This has been done in other cities with other car washes. Presently, workers who are speaking up for their rights and against exploitation are being retaliated against. And as you've heard today, a lot of them are being fired just for saying, no, I'm not going to take this anymore. So if anybody is willing to talk to us, please, we're very open to dialogue right now. And we thank you again for letting us come here, share our stories, and we hope you support us.
Would you give your name and phone number to Ms. Watson?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Mr. Davis?
Good evening again, Mayor, City Council, and staff. Ray Davis here. I want to say kudos to the city clerk you had your ducks in order, and that's all we really ask. Just let people know the steps. And usually, you won't hear anything else from them. And man, Mr. Coper, he hit some out the park. I'm gonna toss something out there. I've heard this more than once, that they're gonna bypass Inglewood if we didn't go for what they're offering us. Bypass us where? They've got to come down where they're going. Where they're gonna bypass us? They're gonna cut back across to Westchester or something? To acquire all those properties is gonna be insanity to the second power. No, they gotta come through Inglewood no matter what they do. I'm prepared to be corrected. So yeah, twist a little arm if you can. You'd be surprised. Because it does start to make sense. When you look at all that unimproved area, and a lot of our tumbleweed properties are down that prairie corridor. Hey, I'm dependent on you guys. You'll come up with something. And the last thing, and I wasn't gonna speak on this until the folks came up in front of me, I honestly have to say I haven't taken my vehicle to a car wash ever. I can count how many times I've washed it even. Probably on a couple of hands. Guys, I'll admit it openly and freely. I got an old truck, it's got more miles on it than the Voyager space probe that left our solar system, okay? Yeah, it's my little hoopty. I use it to drive. Again, I have nothing to hide from my neighbors. I'm not ashamed. I go to work 5 days a week. I am a doorman/valet/cashier at a hotel in Marina Del Rey, have been for 14 years. I make minimum wage, plus tips. I own 2 homes. I have achieved the American dream. I didn't start on that job. Yeah, I worked in aerospace for about 15 years, but it's maintained me. And when I listen to these gentlemen, I feel badly because they obviously don't know their rights. And you gotta have this thing called self-respect, self-esteem. I'm not gonna work for somebody for just tips. No, if somebody gets in my grill badly on my job, I'm quitting. I have work, I can go someplace else. I think your battle maybe isn't with those places. You just need to picket them, tell your friends don't go there, and go work someplace else, guys. You deserve better, your families deserve better. Have a good night, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Alfonso Parker, and I'm gonna wear you out with this here. I'm a Vietnam veteran, 66, 67. Also a conscious objector. They were sending us into Vietnam without weapons training. My father was one World War II. And I've been told by individuals tonight I need to be quiet because something could happen to me. Now you think that if I go to Vietnam believing in my God, by the way, I don't go to church no more because these churches have fell down on their job. They used to be our community center for our knowledge and our togetherness as a culture. You think I'm worried about that if I go there and come back and I'm looking at you and you're looking at me? I'm not the only one. I have comrades in Ohio, Vegas, Palmdale, just like me. We're on the Vietnam Wall. That Veterans Administration out there, we don't need them to take care of our children for glasses and dental. If they pay us our money, which we deserve, it belongs to us. And to racketeer like Al Capone, different sets of diagnosis and programs and stuff, and keep just rolling us over into this program to deny us our just comings. Not because we didn't do it for that, but that's the way it wound up. We don't need you. That is money. You're talking about the economy today. Just as a Vietnam veteran, the rest of the veterans have a right to theirs too, but $184 million been tied up for years. You know what if a veteran got that, and you have them here in Inglewood, got that money, tax-free to them, but do you know how much money they would put back in Inglewood's economy if it was nothing but a drunk and drank up for $3,000, $5,000, whatever it is, and he could drink that and survive? The taxes on that liquor and them cigarettes, my God. And I'm not scared of what can happen to me. This is the lion's den to me, and I'll walk into it full force. Because I'm going to make sure that the cat is out of the bag. Because what you do to me means nothing. Because once it's out, you cannot stop it. I went to Maxine Waters' town hall meeting August 22nd, 2009. Spoke to this issue. She told me that she would look at my records because she has Vietnam veterans in her office, an elected official running a rogue Operation Veterans Organization that has no place in the Constitution, just as an advisory group. That's all they can do. And come back 2 weeks later and tell me that I've never been in the military. And I've got my original DD-214, and they hand me one in 2007, because I've been in the system since 94, filed my claim in 95. And tell me I've never been in the military, and I've got my original, and then you send me in 2007 a fraudulent one with the presidential seal on it. That's espionage and treason when you tamper with federal documents.
Your time, sir. Your time's up, sir.
I'm not going nowhere.
I know that. Time's up.
And I'll be back next week. The same thing with more. Because somebody's gonna do something about it. Well, I'm here now.
Mr. Mayor, Council, my name is Joseph Texera. My councilman is Mike Stevens. And I'm asking this council, including Mr. Stevens and/or those officials below the council, to stop facilitating the continued violation of state law, specifically the withholding of the public records that prove the unprofessional conduct by IPD officers and IPD administrators that I've reported. On May 22nd, the mayor said that he was directing the city attorney to investigate why my records request was illegally denied. But over 7 weeks later, some records are still being withheld. It was only about 3 weeks ago that I received a CD from the city attorney's office that contains some of the IPD audio recordings that I've repeatedly requested since September 19th, 2011, about 300 days ago, even though state law says that the city must provide those records to me in 10 days or less. On June 21st, the Inglewood City Clerk's and Inglewood City Attorney's Office received letters where I tell them that some of the recordings that I had requested of the night that IPD refused to properly investigate a drive-by in my block, recordings that IPD's Captain Sissick played for me last September, were not on the CD I received. And I tell them that I still hadn't gotten any of the written police reports that I'd requested. For instance, this CD didn't include any of the phone calls that I heard in September where my neighbors report the shots fired in front of my house. And although this CD does show an officer asking me on the night of the shooting to go out to a fresh crime scene and look for bullet shells, it doesn't have the very incriminating conversation where one IPD officer indicates to another that this was not IPD policy. And this CD has an IPD dispatcher telling officers where to meet me so that I could give them the bullet shell I found. But the CD doesn't have the recording of me telling the dispatcher where the officers should meet me, which I've heard, and which obviously occurred, or the dispatcher wouldn't have known what to tell the officers. Now, I was waiting to get all the incriminating tapes before I played them for the council and the public, but sooner or later I will get the other tapes and I will play them. And the longer that takes this council to make sure that that happens, the more incompetent or negligent or more guilty or more dishonest it makes IPD, this council, or other city officials look. So I would suggest that the city discontinue this cover-up strategy. It will only confirm in everyone's minds that we have a city government who consistently helps IPD hide dangerous problems in our police department with lies or misleading information or even with violations of state law. Now, I live here, so I don't want that to happen. I just want IPD's policies and procedures improved so that residents like me are given better protection and service, just like the Justice Department recommended in its report about 3 years ago. Remember, sometimes it's not the original crime, but the cover-up of that crime that ends the careers of those in power. Thank you.
Bless you, Elon.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, hi, Inglewood family. I'm Wild Bill Widener. I'm going to go back onto our senior center thing. Last week, I'd mentioned, or 2 weeks ago, I'd mentioned it's coming up summertime, and we got 4 more summers before senior building to be completed. And I asked the following day, Mayor, you was over at the senior center, and I asked you about checking on a way to cool it down. And I got together with Councilman Stevens, Harry Crisby, and the salesman from one of those companies and so forth, and they came up with a solution. And I think it's fairly economical. And I think, being it's such short time, Coastal Eddy's going away. We've been in our natural air conditioning here for a while, so it's going away. It's cold, it's hot when you get inland, just a little bit. And it's going to be here. And we got people 70, 80, 90 years old need a place to hang out, you know. And not like that heat barn that's been over there for all the other summers. And it can be cooled down and fairly reasonable. So my suggestion is, at this late time and trying to come up with money, is they got chump change, or is what I call it. I see it on your ledgers every month and everything, and do it as a month-to-month situation, you know, expense. And I'm going to leave you guys to put your heads together about all that stuff. And, you know, our Inglewood Today newspaper had all those homes for sale, 4 homes that we bought to sell and make money on and everything. You know, our used car man's gone, but he could tell you, you don't advertise used cars and they don't have, and they got flat tires and broken windows and all that stuff. That's what you've got up there for people. You've had all these realtors here, getting them to be approved to sell it and all these different things, and you're not ready to sell nothing. You know, it's crazy. So, you know, you need to get your house in order. And if we're going to make some money on that for our city, then it needs to be done a little more professionally. Thank you.
Mr. Fisher.
Roy Fisher, the First District. You know, Mr. Cooper, he brought a lot to them with regard to refinancing these city entities. However, you know, I kind of hope that whatever you do will be right. But it seems to me, you know, it's like some people, and Mr. Cooper would probably appreciate this, you know, some people, they go and refinance their homes and then they go buy a BMW or some fancy car. And I hope that's not the mentality of this council, but, you know, I hope that you'll do better than that. But, you know, it concerns me because some of the things you do with regard to the assessor agency that you have here, and taking that money and giving it to, like I said, your friends or whatever, and we, the city, not getting anything out of it. It was interesting to me, too, to hear the discussion of that rail, and maybe it would be a good idea if it would go down Prairie. However, you know, Mr. Hyer, Woody Hyer, and myself were at the Faithful Central discussion with that rail line when they had it, and Councilman Franklin, he was there too. And it's always been our point that the safety of this city and the children with regard to where that rail line goes should be most important to all of us. And we spoke to that, and we ran through the city of Los Angeles and the meetings they had in Inglewood and spoke to that. It was surprising to me, though, that I didn't hear that from many of you council persons. Maybe you got to the areas where you could speak to those people who are in fact going to build this thing, but you know, they didn't listen to you, and you know, they didn't listen to us, you know, because when it comes to the safety of those kids, and not just Eucalyptus Fir and La Brea and all those other streets that those children cross every day, there should be an overhead or underground thing, and I don't care what they talk about with earthquakes, because there are earthquakes all over this California area, and all up and down Wilshire and stuff. They went underground and all downtown. So, you know, we can't use those excuses, but that's all those people do with us, is use excuses. It was interesting to me, too, that the discussion of the library, and we have 2 or 3 instead of the one in the 1st district that's not open. And, you know, just like the fire department, we ought to open that library. It's most important for our young people. It was interesting, too, Mayor Butts, to hear you talk about the engineering and the stuff that you know about with regard to safety of this building and stuff. That's good. I mean, you know, that's another one for you. I wanted to know, say to you too, that it was my input with the wave with regard to the police chief and Captain Sisak, you know, that article went into the wave. He had nothing to do with it. He wasn't promoting himself, you know, because I've heard that, you know, through this city, that he was trying to promote himself. Captain Sisak would be the best thing for this city with regard to a police chief. And I hope you two will buy into that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
My name is Diane Zambrano, and it's always interesting how so many people are so quick to say, oh, it's just the naysayer again, and that document should have been available. Let me point out that when we had to ask LAWA to publish the document, they did it after they went back and spoke to their attorneys, the whole truckload of attorneys. Because you know why? The residents of Inglewood are in no way required to have internet access. And you guys closed the libraries. So they're not open for us to run over there. You know, LAWA, with all those attorneys, decided they should not only print the thing that was, what was it, 6.5 feet? 6.5 feet. Not just one for our big library, because it had limited hours, but they put another one at the Proud Bird because that was open when working people actually could go over and see it. But not our city. We just approved this wonderful giant monster document out there, good 4 inches, that you all claim, let me see, what was it you said? The public has access to it the same time. A majority, did you catch that? Majority of the council. Not all of you, but a majority. And one of the council members was out there telling me they had to get a photocopy of that one. I thought that person was going to ask that you hold it, but that didn't happen either. Oh well. But I can understand why, because I wasn't too concerned about the definitions. What upset me is page 42. If we look at our total of our interest payment in 2035, the total will be 67 million. The principal is only 59 million. Did you catch that? You go out and buy the dinner, and after you put off paying for it, you could have put your kid through school, but you're too busy paying for that dinner that you had. Wow. Well, let's go back to those other fun and exciting concepts about, oh, Madison Square Gardens is going to save us. With Hollywood Park, of course, because we all know that rich people choose always to ride public transit, don't they? And that expensive homes always want to be close as possible to the noisy whoosh noises that public transit and the airplanes and everything make. And we know that Californians are really just surfing New Yorkers with really good tans. We all really want a high-rise life, don't we? Gosh, is that why the other beach cities that actually have greater property values than us don't have high-rises? And since we're talking about all that great progress we've made, aren't we grateful that Market Street and that other bus terminal are so doggone busy we can hardly make it down there. They're just raking in so much cash. That's what we call progress, isn't it? Bring on the bulldozers. We've been so successful with our weed fields, maybe we can sell the seeds.
Bill Matthew, District 4, Mayor and City Council. I hope that this council is not pushing the panic button because of the budget and we have in the fourth quarter. So all I ask of the city council is don't push the panic button. because some of the discussions that's held, even on refinancing of the bonds, he might reconsider that and do an analysis on it. And what's interesting is the minute you save how much money you're going to save, what did you say? We're going to put it in the general fund. That's what was said. You can shake your head, but I won't go into that, but just review the tape. Now, concerning the successor agency, here again, you have not had a meeting of the successor agency, nor an oral report from staff, particularly concerning the criteria that's used in the Hollywood Park situation, the recognized obligation payment, which was denied, which you said last time we had a meeting. But you neglected to say it was $42 million. Now the question arises, is that unobligated funds, or was that restricted to Hollywood Park? See, you're not answering the questions that I want to know and the residents should have access to. Now, it is alleged that you've joined a lawsuit challenging the authority of the Department of Finance. See, I don't understand what positions you're taking or what directions you're following. And it seems to me that you're headed for unintended consequences. Now, this is the fourth quarter. We have less than 80 days for the new budget. Now, where is the money? And donde dinero? This is the questions that must be answered. And I congratulate the council member from District 2 because she is the only one concerned on what are you doing? What are you reading? See, all of this is on the internet. I'm not making things up. Now, whether you're being told, I don't know. But you act like you're not being told, or you're just very mum. But to solve any problem, first you got to do is recognize you have a problem. And either you're putting your head in the sand, or you're mute. I don't know. So have a meeting in the successor agency, and let's have some budget hearings immediately.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Steve Bradford, member of the California Legislature representing the City of Inglewood, and it's truly an honor and a pleasure to always be at home. We're taking part in what we call our summer recess, but I don't want to leave anyone with the belief that we're not working. We probably work harder when we're down in our districts during this month than many days in Sacramento, when I say some days we can hide from the public, but it's good to be engaged like you are being engaged tonight by your public. I just want to bring a brief update from Sacramento. As you know, 2 weeks ago, we passed the state budget. In the last week, we've passed a variety of trailer bills that accompany that budget. And I want to thank the mayor for his phone call to me to express his disappointment in trailer bills that we passed. And I too voted on them. So I'm here to fall on the sword and say that we're working to address your concern as it relates to some of the comments as it deals with a successor agent. And to this council's defense, the unintended consequences was a legislator last year taking a vote to what we thought would amend but not end redevelopment. Once cities decided to challenge that decision by the legislature, League of Cities filed a lawsuit, and unfortunately sometimes you file a lawsuit and don't know what the results are, and be careful what you ask for. The judge ruled that the legislature and the governor were correct or hit the legal authority to end redevelopment. That was never my intention as a legislator, but it was our intentions to amend and fix some of the problems that existed, not necessarily in the city of Inglewood or in any of the districts that I represent that have redevelopment agencies. And I think we took a rush decision, listening to the governor, and I'm not here to throw him under the bus, but as I challenged him, Oakland wouldn't be Oakland today without a redevelopment agency. And we constantly remind him of that. And we constantly, if that vote were to be taken today, I assure you it would not pass. Because as Mr. Matthews stated, we're now dealing with the unintended consequences of our action. And we're fighting tooth and nail to make sure that cities such as Inglewood that had viable projects are allowed to go forward. Cities such as Inglewood, who have done a great job in building low to moderate income housing, are allowed to continue that. And that's what we found out. Many of the cities that had the affordable housing set aside, that 20%, they were never using that. So I'm here, my office is on the 6th floor. I'm not going to take up any more of my time. I'm not going to exceed my 3 minutes, but it's always good to be home, and I'll be here to answer any questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council.
Thank you, Assemblyman. All right, close public comment. Councilman Stevens?
Yes, I would like to first address the issue of Mr. Teixeira. Mr. Teixeira, you are a constituent of mine, and I am concerned about your situation. But I would like to read something to you. You know, I know that you're employed, and perhaps you did not receive this email because it was released today at 12:26. And this is from our chief of police. It says, and I've been inquiring in reference to your situation because I do want you to receive your tapes. It says, Mr. Teixeira, I apologize for the delay. I am in the process of researching any and all records that you have requested. You have indicated that there are more recordings that I want to be certain that I have thoroughly researched for those potential records. It is my intention to have a response mailed to you before the end of this week. Thank you for your time and consideration in this matter. Chief Mark Fraterada. So I'd like for you to know, Mr. Fraterada, that Chief Fraterada has taken your request seriously, and he's researching these items for you. And I also do too. But as your elected representative, because of possible future litigation, I really cannot delve into it from this dais, and so I've referred all of my comments to the city attorney in the city of Inglewood. Now, in reference to other issues, in reference to the Veterans Building, where our senior citizens currently is doubling as our senior center, the city manager, we've been working together on making sure that those windows open totally, and I want to thank you very much, as well as Mr. Frisbee. We've started the process. You know, for years those windows have been only allowed to open only about 5 inches, and now what we're going to do with Mr. City Manager, Mr. Fields, as well as Mr. Frisbee and myself, those windows are now going to be able to open more so that more ventilation can come inside. We are researching the issue dealing with air conditioning, Wild Bill, and that information will be forthcoming. In reference to, I just wanted to say something to the residents with a few seconds left. You know, my predecessor, we borrowed $100+ million with no project. This city did not really truly understand, I do not believe, what redevelopment was really, its intended purpose was. Just give you a brief encapsulate what it really is supposed to do. You purchase a piece of property through redevelopment. You have a piece of property. Now you build a new development. If the majority of that development is in fact parking lot, then you are not in fact increasing your property tax base. What increases your property tax base is the building that sits on top of it. What we did, we basically just didn't, my predecessor did not do anything. He just basically just kept the money in the account and let it mature, and that's what happened to us. So now here we have a drop in property taxes. And now with this drop in my property tax base, we find ourselves where we are today, along with other issues. But understand this, it's a new day in Inglewood. We're trying to move forward. We're trying to, we're not pressing the panic button. That's not going to happen. There is hope on the horizon. It's going to be a sunny day in the city of Inglewood in the future. But I just want you to know that this body, myself especially included, We are not out buying new BMWs. Matter of fact, the mayor's BMW, I believe it's although it's very well maintained, it is very much a used vehicle. And so I just say to you that no one is floor showing or having a good time on borrowed money at all. And so I just wanted to share that with you.
Okay.
With that, I just want to conclude. Didn't mean to embarrass you, Mr. Mayor, but it is a fine automobile.
It is 12 years old, though. Go ahead.
Okay. So anyway, I just want to say to all of you have a blessed evening and drive safely home. Thank you.
Councilman Dunlap.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to thank the members of the public who spoke before us and those individuals who brought concerns to us with regard to your workplace. I know that it made an impact on all members of this council, and because we obviously want any business in this city to be operating lawfully and providing a quality of life to the people who work there. So I know we're going to be talking about it, and I appreciate you bringing it to our attention, because these are things we drive by, all of these places, but we're not aware of what was going on. And I mean, working for tips and not being paid, I mean, that's just outrageous, outrageous.
And against the law?
Yeah, plus being against the law. It's completely illegal, and it's just a terrible thing. So we will do what we can to make sure that the laws that exist on the books are complied with. I'm sure we're all in agreement on that. So whatever we can do as a body, I know that we're going to try to assist you. I want to say that when we talked a little bit about the light rail, and I mentioned about going down, Prairie with regard to Madison Square Garden and the Hollywood Park Tomorrow project. I know that was on the table a long time ago, was taken off the table, but you know what? I don't know how much property MTA owned down Wilshire Boulevard. How much do they own on Wilshire? They didn't own anything on Wilshire, they had to buy it. It's the most expensive real estate probably in the state of California. They bought it and they put it underground. And apparently they don't think a whole lot of us here. So it's like, you know what, you have to stand up for your rights, and it's never too late to force the envelope, so to speak. And I think what would really make a difference is if we had 100 or 200 people there at the meeting. That's what it's all about. It's a political difference we have to make.
It is political.
We have to be there, and so I would ask that people consider going. If you don't know a whole lot about it, just go anyway and be there. And then if you hear something you like, then you can get up and speak and address. It's kind of a learning curve for everybody. You don't have to be an expert on the light rail to go to that meeting and listen as a resident of this community. And like I say, if you hear something you like and you want to echo, then you get up and speak. But just being there representing this city and what you see is a vision for our future. Like I say, it's never too late. I know these things are on the table, pull off the table. We have to force it. If we think this is what's best for us, and that's what we need to do. It doesn't matter what the cost is. It's a whole lot less expensive than undergrounding it, like I say, down Wilshire Boulevard. And if it takes another 5 years, we're going to be here a long time. You're going to be here, your children are going to be here, this city's going to be here a long time. So we have to plan for the future, not the short term. So I would ask you to go to that meeting, tell your friends to go as well. Once again, that's Monday evening, the 16th, at 6 o'clock in the community room downstairs. So please come and support this community. Speak up for what you believe is the long-term benefit of this city. Thank you.
Councilman Morales.
Thank you. And just to continue that, I mean, how important it is to continue to appear at those meetings where they continue to hear the same arguments over and over. That means that they haven't been addressed yet. Here, the MTA, there's a lot of things that are of great impact here negatively, which they have not responded to. I know the mayor has opened up some serious dialogue, as I have, in terms of dealing with the right decision makers. We're hopeful that they start to respond in a way that's respectable and reasonable to us. Secondly, Assemblyman Bradford, hats off. Not often does an assemblyman come forward and say, they made a mistake in terms of a vote. The legislation that was written in terms of demolishing the redevelopment agencies was so complicated the experts were confused, and this was all last year. We had our own outside counsel that took his time kind of developing a response to our questions. Of course, the best thing about this is that the intention is still there to help cities like ours that have benefited so much from redevelopment, so we look forward to working with you on that. In terms of hearing the injustices for the car wash workers, I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, it's something that none of us can agree to, and we of course support the fact that everybody should be treated humanely. I don't know. I know it's against the law. I know that there has to be a department either in the state, either it's the Department of Industrial Relations or something, where a group like that can be reported in terms of where they're falling short and what illegal things are happening. So I know if I can't get you that number, I know I can call Mr. Bradford's, Assemblyman Bradford's office, and we could find you the right people to contact. Señores, gracias que vinieron a pedir el apoyo simplemente para su movimiento. Aquí todos sabemos que lo que les está pasando es injusto y apoyamos su posición y ojalá que su movimiento supere esos problemas e injusticias que están pasando. Sabemos que hay departamentos en el estado que se dirigen a estas injusticias. Ojalá que se han conectado con esas personas, de menos a reportar, a empezar con reportar lo que está pasando y reportar los negocios que andan causando estos problemas. Pero para el futuro simplemente les digo que como todos mis colegas aquí, ninguno fallamos de apoyar un arreglo que sea justo. No sé la autoridad que tengamos aquí, pero simplemente podemos formar nuestra opinión y apoyarlo. So, thank you very much once again in regards to the bond action we took tonight. It was ultimately an excellent opportunity the city took advantage of, and I believe it was the right move to make. So, other than that, thank you very much, and good night, everybody.
Thank you. Councilman Franklin?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And first of all, let me thank Assembly Member Steve Bradford for being here tonight to also set the tone for a meeting that's going to be held for a breakfast legislator meeting this coming Thursday. And you hit the nail on the head, and that is, and I'll quote you, dealing with the unintended consequences with our actions. And that's what the South Bay COG and others are concerned about where do we go from here. And that there's been trailer bills we thought was going to help cure and correct, only to find out, well, we're not there yet. And so we need to find out what Sacramento, whether it's on the Assembly side or the Senate side, plans to do to help us as our representative to be able to make our quality of life and our business, our city to thrive and bounce back from this economic woe. I also want to reach out to Rosemary Molina, and the other lady that I met with was Nadia Dominguez, Ms. Dominguez. We met last week, and that after sharing, it's one thing to talk about an issue, it's another thing to see vividly exactly how a person has been treated and is still having the scars. And so I had been reaching out to the owner-operator in my district. Unfortunately, she had been ill and not been available, and I plan to follow up as we discussed to address those concerns as well. Also, I reached out to the city manager and the mayor to work out, if you don't mind, some kind of a letter of introduction to our new consolidated disposal service. We do have a new waste hauler. Getting a number of calls from the residents, and I got this packet, and they're concerned about what they need to do. They weren't aware. Many of the residents are not in tune to cable television and hearing us take business actions. And so we as a city need to announce to the residents and businesses to that we have a new waste hauler that will be in effective August 1st. I'd like to get the letter if you have one, because I want to do my email blast within my little community or et cetera, because people just need to know that we as a city have in fact embraced this new waste hauler, which is known to me as Republic, but it's Consolidated Disposal Services, that they are on board and they will be effective August 1st, so they'll be aware of that. And then finally, Mayor, if you'll be so kind to close the meeting in honor of Commissioner Frank Knoll, who had passed away. Frank Knoll actually was on the Blue Ribbon Committee that actually was never active, but always in dormant, ready to move. He was instrumental in being one of the block club captains on 113th Street and was known for his courageous effort, along with other residents, of getting the speed humps that is now identified on 113th Street all the way from Prairie to Crenshaw. And then also, Mayor, if you close the meeting in honor of Mildred Kaufman, she passed away as well. She was one of the fighters that was looking to make sure her property was secured when the Anderson Freeway was built, also known today as the 105 Freeway. She was very active for redevelopment in the district, which ultimately resulted in the 16 acres getting developed, which currently houses Chili and Red Lobster, and also the 9 homes that was built on 118th Street in Yukon, and that she was a strong member of the District 4 Task Force, and she was instrumental in the transition of Benneque elementary schools merging into one. And on that note, thank you and good night.
Well, here we are, something we all agree on, and that's that politics is the system by which resources are distributed in this country. And that's why the Metro line is being undergrounded on Wilshire, and it's going along the train tracks in Inglewood. Now, I wasn't here when these decisions were made, but I'm sure that people lobbied strenuously for what was best for our community. But even at this late date, to be honest with you, that's what we're trying to do right now. We're trying to force attention on the disparity and the decisions and how that line will run. It should run down Prairie. It's probably $1 billion prospect, and so we have slim chances of making that happen. But what I'm trying to do with a coalition of political, religious, and civic people is to highlight that disparity and how that decision was made, because they want to go to the ocean where Santa Monica is successful, not thinking about in years to come Inglewood can be just as successful, and these decisions will have impacts on us for generations to come. So we have not given up, we will not give up, and we're united about this, and we're going to keep making noise about it, subtly, genteelly, politically at first, getting louder as it gets closer and closer to the time. I want to acknowledge Assemblyman Bradford for doing something I've never seen a politician do, get up and talk about good intentions that have gone bad. Now, what most people don't know is that when the legislature ceded to the governor's demand to abolish redevelopment, they placed a companion bill that allowed cities to pay what we call the ransom. If you gave more money back to the state, you got to keep your redevelopment. In Inglewood's case, it would have been a little over $1 million a year or something like that. For us, it was a bargain. Now, unbeknownst to us, the California League of Cities decided to challenge not just the abolishment, they challenged the ransom too. And the worst of all things happened. The abolishment was upheld and the ransom was called unconstitutional. And that's why we are where we are today. Now, I would tell you this though, we have done everything that we could to hold on to everything that we possibly could to continue redevelopment in this city as we wind down the agency. There was another measure, trailer bill, bad trailer bills, and thank you for being courageous enough to say I voted for that too, but we hope that they will do more legislation because, for instance, if some of these trailers hadn't passed, cities like Inglewood that had bond money before January of 2011 would have been allowed to keep it, but now we're not able to. So we're going to keep fighting for you in public transit, for redevelopment, and we still have a bright future. I want to adjourn the meeting. Thank you again, Assemblyman, for your courage. Of Commissioner Frank Knoll, a longtime Inglewood resident, and as the councilman said, Mrs. Mildred Kaufman, a member of the District 4 Task Force. We're adjourned.